A group of goblins charges through the forest, aiming straight at Mongrel. He remains still, resting a bastard sword across his shoulder. With a steady motion, Mongrel raises the blade and prepares. Focus sharpens as his body shifts into position. Suddenly he moves forward at speed. A sweeping strike cuts through one goblin, followed by another precise swing. Enemies rush from multiple sides trying to overwhelm him. His longer blade keeps them at a distance, breaking their approach. After the final attack, the last goblin falls. Mongrel lowers his sword and stands quietly as the forest settles. A fallen goblin struggles on the ground, while Mongrel stands over it, holding his sword with little emotion. He looks down calmly, showing no hatred toward the creature. His expression remains indifferent as he observes the aftermath. Turning away, Mongrel recalls the simple task given to him. The mission involves eliminating goblins that threaten nearby areas. Another defeated body lies at his feet. He inspects it briefly, noting its condition without interest. After confirming the task, Mongrel prepares to leave. The quiet forest surrounds him as he carries on alone. Mongrel rests his sword on his shoulder and looks at the ground. The task seems finished, and he considers his reward. He walks through the forest calm and unhurried. Along the way, he gathers small fruits and simple supplies. Moving downhill, Mongrel continues alone. The path remains quiet as he pauses to collect more items. A faint memory crosses his mind, though its origin stays unclear. He feels disconnected from his past. Without concern, Mongrel moves forward. The road ahead stretches quietly as he continues his journey alone. A large circular city comes into view as Mongrel arrives at its gates. People move freely inside the walls. Within the guild, his completed task is acknowledged. A staff member prepares the reward for his goblin hunt. Mongrel approaches the counter and hands over proof. Others nearby take notice of his consistent work. Information about guild rewards and contribution is displayed. He learns that simple tasks can steadily raise his standing. A warning appears about dangerous creatures beyond goblins. Mongrel observes quietly, aware of greater threats ahead. Mongrel raises his hand with a firm decision. He resolves to live steadily and continue working as a guild member. At the counter, he considers the next step. The idea of promotion is mentioned, but he shows little urgency. A better rank would bring harder tasks and higher risks. Mongrel reacts with clear reluctance toward that path. He explains his preference for a simple life. Remaining at a lower rank feels more manageable and safe. Leaving the guild, Mongrel heads into the street. His focus shifts to an easy routine, choosing comfort over ambition. A fellow guild member approaches Mongrel and recognizes him. The man shows interest in his recent work. Mongrel stands calmly as the man insists on treating him. The offer is pushed forward with familiarity. Attention shifts to Mongrel's weapon. The man questions why he still uses a bastard sword. A memory surfaces of Mongrel receiving the sword long ago. The moment feels distant but remains clear. Stories of the weapon's rarity and limited use come to mind. Mongrel continues holding it, unchanged in his choice. A guild member comments on Mongrel's weapon. Mongrel listens quietly, showing no concern for the opinion. He grips the bastard sword with ease. The weapon feels familiar, and he shows a slight attachment to it. Walking alone again, Mongrel reflects on his current life. The world feels comfortable, yet something still bothers him. A serious thought forms in his mind. There is one issue he cannot ignore. While eating, Mongrel reacts strongly to the food. The taste feels lacking, leaving him dissatisfied with this world's cooking. A large boar charges forward with force. Mongrel faces it without stepping back, holding his sword ready. A sharp grin spreads across his face as he grips the blade. His focus locks onto the charging beast. He moves quickly and strikes in one motion. The boar is cut down as his attack passes cleanly through. Mongrel kneels beside the fallen body. He begins handling the result with practiced ease. Carefully, he selects the parts he wants. The meat becomes his priority as he prepares it for use. Mongrel prepares the meat carefully, working with steady hands. The process feels familiar, as if learned long ago. Pieces are placed over fire and begin to cook. He watches closely, treating the task with simple focus. Once ready, Mongrel takes a bite. The flavor meets his expectation, bringing a sense of satisfaction. He continues eating without pause. The meal finally matches what he has been seeking. Sitting alone, Mongrel finishes quietly. For him, this moment matters more than the earlier battle. Mongrel realizes something is missing from the meal. The lack of proper seasoning leaves him unsatisfied. He returns to the city carrying supplies. Guards notice him and comment on his work. Mongrel responds calmly while passing through the gate. His focus shifts toward finding what he needs. He considers obtaining seasoning from within the city. A simple plan begins to form in his mind. Mongrel decides on his next step. Instead of relying on others, he chooses to handle it himself. Guards acknowledge Mongrel's ability as he walks through the city. His strength becomes quietly recognized. He reflects on his own potential. A hidden advantage remains unused, yet he shows no rush to rely on it. Mongrel hands out smoked meat as a simple gift. The exchange builds a steady connection with those around him. Returning to the guild, he accepts another request. His routine continues without change. A young adventurer named Reina approaches him. Mongrel listens as a new task begins to take shape. Mongrel speaks with Reina at the guild. She brings up a cleaning task, and he listens with mild interest. Reina explains the situation calmly. Mongrel reacts with slight annoyance, recalling his usual work with goblins. A guild staff member observes them from nearby. Their interaction appears familiar and steady. Reina reflects on how long she has known Mongrel. Their connection has grown over time. Standing together, they prepare to continue working. Mongrel watches as Reina shows confidence in her role. Reina greets Mongrel with a relaxed expression. He responds casually, treating her with familiar ease. They discuss the next task at the guild desk. Mongrel decides to take part while keeping his usual attitude. Preparation begins as instructions are given. Mongrel agrees without hesitation and readies himself to move. Staff members watch them leave together. Their partnership appears natural and well-established. Mongrel steps into the busy street and enters a shop. His focus shifts as he prepares for what comes next. Mongrel enters a shop and begins cleaning work. Inside, he handles tasks while observing the surroundings. A local speaks about recent trouble in the area. Mongrel listens while continuing his assigned duty. He moves outside and sweeps the streets. The work is simple, but he carries it out without complaint. The shop owner reacts to his attitude. Mongrel shows little concern and continues at his own pace. As he works, people around him take notice. The street slowly becomes cleaner while he settles into the routine. Mongrel notices a strange doll stuck above the street. Children nearby look up, unable to reach it. He watches them for a moment before stepping closer. The situation draws his quiet attention. With a simple motion, Mongrel retrieves the doll. The children receive it with clear relief. The boy hesitates, feeling embarrassed. Mongrel observes calmly, waiting for his reaction. He gives a brief lesson through his actions. The children run off together, while Mongrel walks away without concern. Mongrel reflects on the purpose of his work. Simple tasks like cleaning and hunting form the foundation of daily life. He walks through the city streets, observing people quietly. His presence blends in without drawing attention. The bastard sword rests at his side as he considers it again. Its balanced nature matches his steady approach. Mongrel accepts that the weapon suits him. Its versatility aligns with his way of handling situations. At a house, a resident greets him with gratitude. Mongrel responds calmly, continuing his role without seeking recognition. The city moves with daily life as Mongrel walks through quietly. People pass by, unaware of his thoughts. He sits alone at a table and begins eating. The simple meal fails to meet his expectations. A spoonful confirms his disappointment. The taste lacks depth, leaving him unsatisfied again. Nearby others notice his reaction and look toward him. Mongrel remains calm despite their attention. He continues eating without concern. The moment passes as he quietly accepts the situation. Two nations stood divided by long conflict, their borders marked by distrust. One land was known for dark-haired people, while the other was filled with lighter features. Tension shaped their history, and peace never lasted. The difference between them remained clear and constant. Mongrel Kuro, a man of mixed origin, lived between those worlds. His appearance carried traits from both sides, making him stand out inside a crowded tavern. Others watched him with unease. His presence alone reminded them of the divide they disliked. Whispers spread among the people nearby. Filled with suspicion towards someone like him, Mongrel remained calm, showing little reaction. Fatigue crossed his face as if he had faced the same judgment many times before. Elsewhere, guild officials reviewed reports about growing tensions in the city. Concern rose over individuals connected to both nations. Mongrel's situation reflected a larger problem that continued to spread. Rumors linked outsiders to dangerous activities, increasing fear among the citizens. Even those who tried to remain neutral became targets of doubt. In a place ruled by division, Mongrel's existence alone placed him at the center of unease. Mongrel Kuro sat quietly as the men around him noticed his presence. Their attention shifted toward him with clear suspicion. His calm posture did not match the tension building nearby. A worker in the tavern observed the situation, aware that people like Mongrel often brought trouble. Concern spread subtly through the room. At the same time, a man reacted with visible irritation toward Mongrel's presence. The tavern owner forced Mongrel to leave, unwilling to risk conflict inside. Outside, several men surrounded him, blocking any easy escape. Their stance showed they had already decided how to treat him. Hostility quickly escalated as they targeted Mongrel for his mixed heritage. Their anger grew stronger, driven by deep prejudice. Mongrel remained still, his expression sharpening as the threat became clear. Violent intent filled the air as the group revealed their past actions and mindset. The situation turned dangerous, with no sign of restraint. Mongrel stood at the center, facing a moment that would decide what came next. Mongrel Kuro stood calmly, despite the pressure around him. The group tightened their circle, expecting him to react. His posture remained relaxed, showing no urgency. Without warning, one of the men lunged forward and struck. Mongrel anticipated the attack and shifted slightly, avoiding direct impact. A faint change appeared in his expression, revealing awareness of the situation. The force of the attack carried through the surroundings, breaking nearby wood and causing chaos. Mongrel endured the movement without losing balance. His body absorbed the moment with minimal effort. Those watching began to notice something unusual about him. Doubt replaced their earlier confidence as they observed his condition. Mongrel brushed off minor damage, showing that the strike had little effect. The group continued to mock him, assuming his weapon and stance were weak. However, Mongrel's expression shifted into something colder beneath his calm exterior. A quiet strength surfaced, hinting that the situation was far from over. Mongrel Kuro remained still as the group rushed toward him. One man enhanced his strength, preparing to strike with full force. Despite the incoming attack, Mongrel showed no sign of panic. The first blow landed, but the result surprised everyone. Mongrel absorbed the impact and countered instantly, knocking one attacker aside. His movement was precise and controlled, far beyond what they expected. More men charged in, attempting to overwhelm him together. Mongrel responded without hesitation, striking back with clean and efficient motions. Each action carried enough force to push them back. Bodies fell across the broken ground as the group realized they were outmatched. Their earlier confidence disappeared, replaced by shock and fear. Mongrel stood alone, unharmed, surrounded by the aftermath. A sharp change appeared in his expression as his restraint faded. The calm attitude he maintained before vanished completely. In that moment, Mongrel revealed a far more dangerous side that none of them had anticipated. Mongrel Kuro grabbed one of the men and forced him down without effort. Fear quickly replaced the man's earlier aggression. His resistance collapsed as the situation turned against him. Mongrel leaned closer, his expression sharp and unforgiving. The man trembled under the pressure, unable to look away. A sudden strike followed, driving him into the ground with force. Another attacker tried to step in, but hesitation slowed him. Mongrel moved forward steadily, leaving no space for escape. Panic spread as the remaining men realized they could not stop him. The fight ended quickly as Mongrel struck again with overwhelming strength. Each motion carried clear intent, breaking their will completely. The group lost all confidence, unable to continue. Silence settled over the scene as the last man fell back in fear. Mongrel stood alone, surrounded by defeated opponents. His presence alone now controlled the space, leaving no doubt about the outcome. Mongrel Kuro looked down at the fallen men with a cold expression. One of them tried to rise, but his body failed to respond. The difference in strength had already been decided. Another man stepped forward, fear mixed with regret. His movements lacked confidence, showing that his will to fight had weakened. Mongrel walked toward him without hesitation. Panic took over as the man realized escape was no longer possible. His body reacted before his thoughts could catch up. Mongrel closed the distance with steady steps. A sudden shift in Mongrel's demeanor revealed his anger more clearly. His restraint disappeared, replaced by a direct and ruthless intent. The man froze under that pressure. The final strike came down with overwhelming force, ending the fight completely. The last opponent collapsed, unable to continue. Mongrel stood over the scene, leaving no room for anyone to challenge him again. Mongrel Kuro stood among the fallen bodies, holding his sword with a steady grip. The fight had ended, leaving no one able to stand against him. A final movement sent another opponent crashing down, ensuring no resistance remained. From a distance, two guild members observed the aftermath. Their attention focused on Mongrel, recognizing his strength and unusual presence. Interest replaced concern as they evaluated his potential. Mongrel was soon brought before them inside the guild. The female staff member examined the situation carefully, noting his behavior during the incident. Her expression showed both caution and curiosity. A small payment was offered for the damages caused. Mongrel accepted it without much reaction, showing little attachment to the conflict that had just occurred. His focus remained elsewhere. Afterward, he returned to the tavern, carrying on as if nothing significant had happened. The guild members continued to watch from afar, aware that someone like Mongrel could not be ignored for long. Mongrel Kuro returned to a quiet food shop after the fight. The atmosphere felt calm, far from the chaos earlier. A plate of grilled meat was placed in front of him. He began eating without hesitation, focusing only on the food. Each bite showed clear satisfaction, as if nothing else mattered. The tension from before disappeared completely. A female knight approached and watched him closely. His behavior seemed unusual, compared to the strength he displayed earlier. Mongrel barely reacted, continuing his meal without concern. She sat nearby, and observed him further, trying to understand his attitude. Mongrel remained relaxed, speaking casually while finishing his food. His actions suggested he had no interest in the earlier conflict. Later they moved outside with others preparing for a new task. The group gathered supplies while the knight explained the situation. Mongrel listened quietly, ready to move on without looking back at what had already happened. Mongrel Kuro listened, as the female knight spoke about recent work. Her body showed signs of fatigue, suggesting long hours and constant effort. He observed her condition with quiet attention. She explained the amount of tasks handled each day, far beyond what most could manage. Mongrel reacted suddenly, grabbing her shoulders as he realized the strain she carried. His concern surfaced in a direct and unexpected way. A brief shift in mood followed as Mongrel examined her more closely. His serious expression softened, turning into a lighter reaction. The tension eased as their interaction became less intense. Soon after, both of them raised their drinks together. The atmosphere changed into something relaxed and casual. Others nearby watched as the moment turned into a simple break from their duties. Empty plates and mugs remained on the table. As the meal ended, Mongrel leaned back, speaking calmly while looking toward her. The conversation continued quietly, far removed from the violence that had taken place earlier. Mongrel Kuro listened as the group spoke about Lena's background and personality. They described her as dependable and skilled, someone who supported others. Mongrel remained quiet, taking in the information. Lena recalled her past, remembering how she once aimed to become a knight. Her journey included joining different parties, but none of them lasted. Each experience shaped her current path. Time passed before she eventually met Mongrel. Their first encounter happened during a routine task in the field. Mongrel stood out immediately due to his unusual behavior. He spoke about how environment and relationships influenced people. Lena listened carefully, trying to understand his perspective. His calm attitude made it difficult to read his true intentions. Mongrel demonstrated his skills in a simple but effective way. His movements showed control and experience without unnecessary effort. Lena watched closely, realizing that his strength was far beyond what he usually revealed. Mongrel Kuro sat quietly, while Lena questioned him about recent events. Her curiosity focused on how he handled multiple opponents so easily. He answered calmly, showing no pride in what he had done. Lena looked at him more seriously, trying to understand his true ability. His calm attitude made it difficult to judge his limits. Mongrel remained relaxed, avoiding unnecessary attention. She suggested that he should not continue working alone. Concern appeared in her expression as she encouraged him to join a group. Mongrel listened without giving a clear response. A slight smile formed on his face as he explained his situation. His lifestyle did not match others, and he showed little interest in changing it. Lena noticed the gap between his strength and his choices. Later, Mongrel stood alone outside, holding his sword in a ready stance. His thoughts reflected a past that separated him from others. Even with opportunities around him, he chose to walk his own path without depending on anyone. Mongrel Kuro reflected on his strength, aware that he had not revealed everything yet. His thoughts remained controlled, as if he was holding something back. Confidence stayed hidden beneath his calm expression. He later spoke with Lena, showing a relaxed attitude toward his future. His decision to continue alone remained unchanged. Lena listened, unable to fully accept his way of thinking. Back at the tavern, a freshly prepared dish was placed in front of him. Mongrel looked at it with slight curiosity. The simple moment contrasted sharply with his earlier reflections. He sat with the others while examining the food, unsure what to expect. The atmosphere remained light, far removed from danger. Mongrel stayed quiet, observing before acting. Aya's senior member introduced the dish with quiet confidence. Mongrel's expression shifted slightly, showing interest mixed with caution. Even in a peaceful setting, he remained aware, never fully letting his guard down. Mongrel Kuro calmly explained how to enjoy the food, focusing on its natural taste. He guided Lena without hesitation, showing unexpected knowledge. His relaxed attitude made the moment feel simple and ordinary. Lena reflected on what she had said earlier, realizing her mistake. Meanwhile, Mongrel continued eating as usual, unaffected by her thoughts. The atmosphere settled into a quiet rhythm, with with both of them sharing a brief moment of peace. In the kingdom of Halperia, the city of Legol bustled as autumn arrived. A crowded guild board overflowed with requests, marking the busiest season for adventurers. Tasks covered every inch, leaving little room for anything else. Opportunity filled the air, yet competition grew just as quickly. Mongrel stood among the crowd, his expression dull despite the excitement around him. Beside him, a young archer named Lyra looked on with quiet curiosity. While others rushed forward, Mongrel remained still, uninterested in the chaos. The overwhelming number of jobs only seemed to tire him. Away from the noise, Lyra crouched in the grass, carefully observing a small trap. She studied the surroundings with patience, knowing unfamiliar places often carried hidden danger. Caution guided her actions as she focused on the task at hand. Back inside, Mongrel leaned against the wall, listening as others discussed the forest's strange changes. Lyra stood nearby, arms crossed, considering the situation. The shifting conditions of the forest suggested something unusual beneath the surface. In the end, both returned to the board, staring at the overwhelming list of requests. Adventurers gathered tightly, each hoping to secure work. Mongrel remained indifferent, while Legora quietly assessed the possibilities ahead. Mongrel and Legora walked through a quieter street, away from the crowded guild. The city remained busy, yet this area offered space to think. Mongrel reflected on their recent trip into the forest, noting how unusual the conditions had become. Leora listened while observing their surroundings. A mention of Chios caught Leora's attention. The village had recently grown, becoming more developed and active. Mongrel considered how quickly it had changed, recalling when it was far simpler. Growth had brought convenience, but also new concerns. Returning to the guild board, both examined the requests again. Construction jobs dominated the listings, showing how much the region was expanding. Workers filled the area, and demand continued to rise. The steady increase in labor made the situation clear. Mongrel paused, weighing the circumstances while the city stretched outward. Beyond the walls, the landscape remained vast and open. Lyora stayed close, waiting as he reached a decision about their next move. Finally, they stepped away from the board and headed off together. Lyora considered the river as a possible destination, while Mongrel preferred a more cautious approach. With the city behind them, both prepared for whatever awaited next. Mongrel and Lyra left the city behind and headed toward the river. The streets faded into open land, replaced by trees and flowing water. A quiet atmosphere surrounded them as they reached a rocky riverside. Excitement suddenly showed on Mongrel's face as he raised a fishing rod. Leora reacted with surprise, caught off guard by the unexpected plan. Instead of pursuing guild work, he focused on something far simpler. Standing on a large rock, Mongrel explained the area's conditions through gestures. The river held plenty of shrimp during this season, making it an easy source of food. Leora listened while trying to understand his reasoning. Doubt appeared on Leora's face as she examined the situation. Mongrel remained relaxed, clearly unconcerned by her hesitation. The difference in their expectations became more noticeable. Soon, Mongrel handed her a rod and demonstrated its use. Lyra accepted it carefully, still uncertain, but willing to try. With the calm river in front of them, their focus shifted from work to a simple task. By the river, Mongrel focused on simple survival methods, rather than profit. He showed Lyra how fishing could provide steady food without relying on the market. The calm water and steady rhythm created a quiet learning moment. Moving along the riverbank, Mongrel pointed out better spots. Lyra followed carefully, stepping between rocks while observing the flow. The area offered ideal conditions, making the task easier than expected. Both settled on a large rock. Rods extended over the water. Time passed slowly as they waited, surrounded by the soft sounds of the river. Lyra began to understand his relaxed approach. A brief pause led to reflection as Lyra looked toward the nearby village. Mongrel noticed her expression but remained unchanged. Soon after, a group approached from a distance, bringing a shift in atmosphere. Inside a building, Leora stood facing the group, now separated from the quiet river. Movement and urgency replaced the earlier calm. Mongrel stayed nearby, watching as the situation quickly became more complicated. Inside the guild, Leora moved through a crowded room filled with noise and activity. Adventurers gathered in groups, exchanging items, and preparing for work. The lively atmosphere contrasted with her earlier calm by the river. Later, she sat beneath a tree, focusing on her equipment. Mongrel stood nearby, explaining the basics of using a bow. Careful attention guided her actions as she tried to follow his method. An attempt at shooting revealed a flaw in her arrow. Mongrel quickly noticed the issue and reacted with surprise. The situation shifted from simple practice to a small problem that needed fixing. Legora grew uneasy after pointing out the mistake. Mongrel turned away, his reaction unclear at first. Tension formed as she wondered if she had gone too far. For a moment, Mongrel appeared serious, creating uncertainty. Soon after, his composure broke, revealing a less intense mood. The situation eased, though Leora remained cautious about what would come next. Leora showed her bow to Mongrel, unsure about its quality. He examined it closely, noticing something unusual about its condition. A sense of confusion appeared as he tried to understand what he was looking at. Suddenly, Mongrel reacted strongly after realizing the truth. The bow was not meant for real combat, but for basic practice. His expectations dropped, and the gap between her equipment and proper gear became clear. Despite that, Leora prepared herself and took aim. Mongrel crouched nearby, watching carefully as she steadied her posture. Her focus remained sharp even with the limitations of her weapon. The arrow flew faster than expected and struck a bird cleanly. Mongrel's expression changed immediately, surprised by the result. The outcome proved her skill went beyond the tool she used. Afterward, Mongrel held the catch, still processing what had happened. Leora stood calmly, showing quiet confidence. The moment revealed that her ability could surpass the limits of her equipment. Mongrel held the bird and looked toward Leora with a new idea. The area had plenty of prey, making it possible to gather more if they continued. Leora listened, unsure about his sudden shift in approach. A plan formed as Mongrel suggested handling things outside the guild system. Leora hesitated, unfamiliar with such methods, while he remained confident in his decision. The difference in experience between them became clear again. Mongrel introduced himself more openly, revealing a name Leora had not expected. His expression carried a calm certainty, as if his way of doing things was already decided. Leora quickly corrected herself and gave her own name, feeling slightly flustered. Mongrel's posture relaxed, the tension fading into a more casual mood. The distance between them began to close. After that, Mongrel explained his intention to cook the bird, rather than treat it as a formal task. Leora stood quietly, considering his offer. With the forest around them, a simple partnership started to take shape. Back in the city, Mongrel guided Leora through the marketplace, showing how gathered goods could be used or sold. He pointed out simple ways to make use of resources without relying entirely on guild work. Leora followed, taking in each detail. Soon after, Leora stood before a group and formally greeted them. Her posture was respectful, showing gratitude for their support. The atmosphere felt more structured compared to her time with Mongrel. A woman stepped forward and observed Leora closely, offering her an opportunity to join a group. Others stood behind her, forming a presence that felt both welcoming and serious. Leora faced a new path opening before her. Later, the scene returned to the riverside, where the calm water flowed steadily. Mongrel remained focused on fishing, while Leora quietly watched him from behind. A sense of reflection settled over her. Sitting near the edge, Leora expressed quiet appreciation through her actions. Mongrel noticed the change, though he did not react strongly. The moment remained simple, yet it marked a subtle shift in their connection. By the riverside, Mongrel noticed tension in Leora's posture and pointed out her mistake. Her line had already caught something, though she had not realized it. The moment shifted from waiting to sudden action. Leora focused and carefully followed his guidance. Sweat formed as she adjusted her grip, trying to control the pull. Mongrel watched closely, ensuring she did not rush the movement. With steady effort, she lifted her catch from the water. A large shrimp emerged, surprising her with its size. The simple technique proved more effective than she expected. Mongrel acknowledged her success, recognizing her natural ability despite limited experience. Leora remained calm, though a quiet confidence began to show. The result reflected both skill and careful attention. Soon after, she prepared for another attempt while Mongrel observed. The river continued to flow steadily as she focused again. Step by step, her progress became more certain. Lyra suddenly reacted as her line tightened, pulling with force. Mongrel immediately noticed and urged her to act at the right moment. The calm rhythm of the river shifted into urgency. After the movement settled, Mongrel checked the result and found nothing. His expression turned stiff as he realized the outcome. Lyra looked on, unsure how to respond to the unexpected failure. Confusion grew as Mongrel questioned what had gone wrong. Both sat quietly, trying to understand why the catch had disappeared. The situation felt strange, breaking the earlier pattern. Mongrel began analyzing the cause, focusing on positioning rather than skill. Lyra listened closely, considering his explanation. The problem seemed tied to where they were sitting rather than how they acted. A sudden realization struck Mongrel as he looked toward the river. Lyra quickly pointed in the same direction, noticing movement downstream. Attention shifted immediately as both prepared for what might appear next. Across the river, Lyra pointed toward a figure moving between the rocks. Mongrel followed her gaze and noticed something unusual in the distance. The calm surroundings quickly turned tense. A large shape emerged, its movement heavy and deliberate. The creature's presence became clear as it stepped forward, its size far beyond anything they had expected to face near the river. The monster revealed itself as a cyclops, its single eye fixed on the area. Its body showed strength and endurance, marking it as a dangerous being. The quiet riverside now felt like a battlefield. Ligora prepared her bow, waiting for direction while keeping distance. Mongrel stepped forward, drawing his sword with a steady motion. His focus sharpened as he assessed the situation without hesitation. Both moved into position, ready to act. Mongrel advanced with confidence, while Lyra supported from behind. The encounter shifted from observation to confrontation as they faced the approaching threat. Lyra realized the monster's strength far exceeded expectations. Mongrel stood firm while the Cyclops advanced across the river. Fear rose, yet neither moved back. Both prepared themselves, knowing escape was unlikely and the fight could not be avoided. Mongrel stood near the riverbank, observing the distant figure across the water. A large Cyclops moved slowly along the opposite side, its presence heavy and unnatural. The calm surroundings contrasted with the tension building in the air. Beside him, his companion prepared cautiously, while Mongrel remained still, studying the creature's behavior. The Cyclops revealed its true nature as it faced forward. Its single eye focused sharply, and its expression showed clear intent rather than wandering aimlessly. It recognized humans as prey. Drool fell from its mouth, and its body remained steady, ready to act at any moment. Mongrel allowed his companion to take aim first. She drew her bow carefully, maintaining focus, despite the pressure. The arrow was released toward the Cyclops, but its hardened body reduced the impact. Mongrel watched closely, noting the lack of effect and the subtle shift in the creature's stance. He analyzed the situation calmly, concluding that only the eye would be vulnerable. The distance and angle made the attempt difficult. Still, he decided to proceed, stepping forward with quiet confidence while his companion hesitated behind him. The girl steadied herself again, treating the moment like practice, despite the danger. Mongrel remained nearby, ready to intervene if necessary. The tension persisted as both prepared for the next move. Mongrel stepped forward and suggested a different approach. His gaze remained steady as he held his sword loosely, showing no urgency. Behind him, the girl prepared her bow again, adjusting her stance with more focus than before. She inhaled slowly and steadied her arms. The tension in her body eased as her eyes closed briefly. When she opened them, her expression changed, showing clear concentration. Mongrel stayed nearby, watching without interference. Energy gathered as she drew the string further than before. Her focus narrowed toward the distant Cyclops across the river. The creature remained unaware, standing in place while the aim aligned carefully with its single eye. Power surged through her body as she activated a special technique. The arrowhead pointed forward with precision, and her posture became firm. The Cyclops began to react, sensing danger too late. The arrow was released with force and speed. It cut through the air in a straight line, reaching the target instantly. The impact struck directly at the eye, piercing through and ending the threat in a single motion. The arrow sped forward with great force, cutting through the air toward the Cyclops. Its eye widened as it noticed the incoming attack, but its body remained rooted in place for a brief moment. At the last second, the creature shifted its head slightly. The arrow missed the eye and grazed past, leaving only a minor wound. The Cyclops reacted instantly, turning its full attention toward the attackers. Mongrel moved without hesitation, jumping down toward the battlefield. His posture changed from calm observation to direct engagement. Behind him, the girl remained on higher ground, readying another shot to support him. A quiet intensity settled over Mongrel as he prepared himself. His expression hardened, and his focus locked entirely onto the approaching enemy. The distance between them began to close rapidly. He raised his voice sharply, signaling urgency as the situation escalated. The girl stayed in position, maintaining distance while holding her bow steady. The next exchange would decide the outcome of the fight. The Cyclops rushed forward through the shallow water, closing the distance quickly. Mongrel raised his voice, forcing his companion to think clearly instead of panicking. She hesitated, her focus wavering as the danger approached. She regained some composure and chose to trust him. Mongrel stood firm ahead, his body angled toward the incoming threat. His eyes sharpened, and his breathing slowed as he prepared to act. Water splashed around his legs as he stepped forward, placing himself directly in the creature's path. The Cyclops advanced with heavy steps, its attention fixed entirely on him. The The monster lifted its arm and struck down with overwhelming force. The impact shattered the ground, sending debris outward. Mongrel avoided the blow by a narrow margin, maintaining his position instead of retreating. He faced the towering figure, without hesitation, holding his sword steady. The Cyclops roared above him, raising its arm again. Behind him, the girl watched in shock as Mongrel remained unmoved, ready for the decisive moment. The Cyclops swung its massive arm downward, aiming to crush Mongrel in one blow. Instead of retreating, he stepped in close, slipping under the attack and driving his blade into the creature's side. Blood burst outward as Mongrel followed through with another strike. His movement remained smooth and controlled, circling the monster while keeping just outside its reach. The girl watched, unable to look away. The Cyclops staggered, its balance breaking as Mongrel cut deeper into its legs. Each motion carried precision, targeting weak points rather than wasting strength. The creature's eye widened, its body slowing. Mongrel pressed forward, delivering another clean strike that forced the Cyclops onto its knees. The ground shook under its weight as it struggled to rise, but its movements had already become unsteady. With one final motion, he completed the attack and stepped back. The Cyclops collapsed fully, its body falling lifeless into the water. From a distance, the girl stood frozen, quietly realizing the gap between them. The Cyclops lay collapsed in the shallow water, its massive body barely moving. Mongrel stood nearby, watching for any sign of movement, while the girl remained at a distance, still tense after the fight. A faint twitch ran through the creature, but its strength had already faded. Mongrel approached carefully, confirming the damage. The girl stepped closer, her attention fixed on the fallen monster. He examined the body with a calm expression, noting its durability and the danger it had posed. Despite its size, the creature had fallen once its weak points were targeted. The river slowly carried away the spreading blood. Both of them stood beside the motionless Cyclops. The tension that filled the area began to fade, replaced by a quiet stillness. The outcome of the battle became clear. Mongrel lowered himself to rest, showing no sign of excitement. The girl looked at him with a different expression now, recognizing his skill. The moment passed calmly as the battle came to an end. Mongrel pointed toward the river, casually dismissing the tension from earlier. His posture relaxed, as if the battle had been nothing unusual. The girl leaned forward, still trying to process what had just happened. She straightened herself and showed a faint, confident smile. Her earlier hesitation faded, replaced by quiet determination. The atmosphere between them shifted into something lighter. A small container, filled with shrimp, rested between them. Mongrel explained the simple preparation, treating the situation as routine. The girl listened closely, holding the container with care. Mongrel's attention softened as he looked ahead, already thinking about the next day. The girl sat beside him, focused on the task, though her movements remained slightly stiff. Both of them stood near the fallen Cyclops once more. Mongrel turned his gaze toward the body, considering what should be done next. The quiet river flowed around them as the scene settled into calm silence. Mongrel looked up at the sky, his expression turning serious. A sense of unease lingered as he reflected on the unusual encounter. The calm from earlier began to fade, replaced by quiet concern. They arrived at a processing area in the nearby town. Workers moved around steadily, handling materials brought in from the river. Mongrel and the girl approached, drawing attention as they carried news of the Cyclops. The locals listened carefully as the situation was explained. Concern spread among them, as the presence of such a creature suggested something abnormal. Mongrel remained composed, observing their reactions. He suddenly recalled an important detail that had been overlooked. His posture shifted slightly, indicating that something about the creature did not match expectations. The truth became clear as they examined what had been found. Inside the Cyclops, remains revealed a disturbing origin. Mongrel recognized the implication immediately, understanding that the threat was far more dangerous than it first appeared. Mongrel spoke with the workers, confirming the details of the Cyclops. The report was handled quickly, and the tension from earlier shifted into routine work. The girl stood beside him, listening quietly. The next day, they arrived at a small house. Mongrel carried a container filled with shrimp, handing it over for preparation. The atmosphere felt calm, far removed from the battle. A plate of cooked shrimp was placed before them. The food looked fresh and well prepared, drawing both of their attention. Mongrel observed it with interest while the girl leaned closer. She tasted the shrimp carefully, her expression changing as she recognized the flavor. The tension from before completely disappeared, replaced by simple enjoyment. Mongrel watched her reaction with a relaxed expression. The meal continued in a quiet setting. Mongrel accepted the food without hesitation, while the girl regained her usual composure. The day ended peacefully, with no sign of the earlier danger. Mongrel tasted the shrimp and leaned back slightly, satisfied with the result. The food turned out better than expected, and the earlier concerns about its size disappeared. Across from him, the girl continued eating quietly. He lifted his drink and took a long sip, the tension in his body easing further. The girl followed his lead, drinking as well. The atmosphere became relaxed, filled with a simple sense of comfort. More shrimp remained on the plate as they continued eating. Mongrel considered small ways to improve the flavor, but the meal was already enjoyable. The setting felt ordinary, far from the earlier danger. The girl ate with growing enthusiasm, clearly enjoying the food. Mongrel watched her reaction and showed a faint, amused expression. The gap between them seemed smaller than before. They sat together as the meal continued, speaking little and resting after the long day. Mongrel leaned back with his drink, while the girl focused on the last bites. The moment settled into quiet satisfaction. Mongrel sat calmly at the table, finishing his drink after the meal. The tension from earlier had fully disappeared, leaving only a relaxed mood. Across from him, the girl appeared cheerful, her energy returning as the day came to a close. She leaned forward with a bright expression, already looking ahead to the next outing. Mongrel watched her quietly, accepting the moment. The calm routine of their lives continued, shaped by simple plans and steady companionship. Mongrel reviews a report about a cyclops sighting near a remote river. The document contains a crude drawing and scattered notes, suggesting unclear details. A quiet day at the guild shifts as the task begins to take shape. Inside the guild, the vice leader assigns the investigation. Mongrel stands beside a junior member, both receiving the request. The mission appears simple, yet the lack of precise information raises concern. A closer look at the vice leader shows his careful judgment. Responsibility for troublesome tasks often falls on him, and this case seems no different. Mongrel listens while the situation is outlined with caution. Mongrel accepts the assignment without hesitation. Confidence shows in his posture, while his companion appears uncertain about relying on limited clues. Despite that, preparation for departure begins. The vice leader reflects on the incomplete report and decides further investigation may be needed. Mongrel's team is expected to gather clearer information near the river. With that, the task moves forward under quiet tension. Mongrel walks through a busy town where tensions rise among the people. A small conflict breaks out in the street, showing how unstable the area has become. Nearby, his companion notices how the growing population has brought more problems. Back at the guild, attention shifts to Mongrel and his teammates' current rank. The vice leader observes their progress, noting that both are still considered low-ranked despite recent activity. A quiet pause follows as Mongrel shows little interest in advancement. The vice leader studies him, sensing a lack of ambition that contrasts with typical adventurers. Beside him, his companion reflects on their slow growth. Progress feels recent and incomplete, suggesting that their current level still does not match their potential. An explanation of the guild's ranking system is laid out, from bronze to higher tiers. Advancement depends on strict evaluations, making promotion difficult. Mongrel remains unconcerned, while the path ahead becomes clearer yet more demanding. Mongrel stands before the vice leader as guidance is given about steady growth. Effort and consistency are emphasized over rushing ahead. His companion listens quietly, understanding the importance of patience. Attention shifts to Mongrel's attitude toward rank and contribution. Despite his abilities, he shows little concern for recognition. The vice leader notes that such indifference may affect how others see him. Around the guild, other adventurers react to the idea of promotion. Some view advancement as necessary, while others question those who avoid it. The atmosphere reflects differing expectations within the group. Mongrel responds with confidence, showing no hesitation in presenting himself. A sense of readiness appears, suggesting he is willing to move forward in his own way. The guild standards for higher ranks are revealed through skilled individuals, demonstrating strength. Advancement requires clear results and visible achievements. Mongrel's path remains uncertain, balancing between ability and personal choice. Mongrel leaves the guild with his companion after receiving encouragement from the vice leader. The situation in the city continues to grow unstable, and news about orcs spreading in nearby areas raises concern. Along the hallway, his companion explains that facing non-human enemies can be dangerous. Mongrel listens while walking casually, showing little tension despite the warning outside. The discussion shifts to how demi-humans are often involved in conflicts. His companion admits uncertainty, while Mongrel suggests staying out of direct attention when possible. A deeper issue becomes clear, as those with unique traits are often targeted. Fear and pressure surround them, making survival more difficult in this world. Mongrel offers a simple approach, blending into the crowd instead of standing out. With that thought, the two prepare to head toward the next task, carrying both caution and quiet determination. Mongrel enters a guild office where a staff member handles requests. Papers are handed over as he reviews available work. His expression shows little excitement despite the number of tasks. The staff member explains that the guild lacks enough people for current needs. Increased activity in the city has forced them to rely on available adventurers, even those less interested. A request is presented, involving patrol duties and guarding nearby areas. Mongrel hesitates, aware that such work brings little reward and requires steady effort. Scenes of the task appear in his mind, showing crowds, labor, and constant demands. The work feels repetitive and exhausting, far from the kind of missions he prefers. Despite reluctance, Mongrel considers joining as space remains open. The situation leaves him weighing convenience against responsibility, while the guild continues to depend on whoever is willing to step forward. A new document is presented to Mongrel, detailing a patrol assignment within the city's security unit. The task appears routine, yet it connects him with a specific team he has not worked with before. At the counter, a staff member mentions that the assigned group is experienced and reliable. Mongrel shows interest, considering the opportunity to work alongside skilled members, rather than resisting. He accepts the situation with a relaxed attitude. The idea of stepping into a different environment begins to feel less troublesome. The staff member encourages him, suggesting that completing the mission safely holds real value. Recognition may be limited, but the experience itself carries importance. The scene shifts to the assigned team, led by a veteran healer. His calm presence reflects years of experience within the security unit. With preparations complete, Mongrel's next assignment quietly begins under capable guidance. Mongrel meets the veteran healer, noticing his fragile condition. The man appears weak, struggling to maintain his strength despite being part of the active unit. Concern grows as Mongrel realizes the healer has been in poor condition even before departure. The situation suggests that the mission may not proceed as smoothly as expected. Background details reveal the healer's past as a respected figure from a higher institution. His calm personality contrasts with his current weakened state, leaving a quiet impression. Mongrel is introduced to the rest of the team, led by an experienced captain. The group greets him with familiarity, showing a sense of unity built over time. The members stand together, each carrying visible experience from past missions. Although their abilities are reliable, their age becomes noticeable. Mongrel observes them carefully, aware that this team differs greatly from typical adventurers. Mongrel watches the group gather around the wagon as preparations finish. Trust is placed in their combined experience, and the journey begins with quiet confidence. The team travels along open roads, leaving the city behind. Trees and distant mountains frame the path as the wagon moves steadily forward. Time passes as they continue deeper into rural land. The group maintains a calm rhythm, with each member focused on their role during the journey. Fields stretch across the landscape, but something feels off. Hidden within the crops, small creatures begin to appear, quietly disturbing the harvest. Mongrel notices the damage as a farmer points out the problem. The presence of goblins becomes clear, turning a simple patrol into a task that requires immediate attention. Mongrel steps into the fields with a farmer, observing the damage caused by goblins. Rather than rushing in, he considers how to handle the situation without worsening the condition of the crops. Hidden among the tall plants, several goblins gather and react to his presence. Their movements are cautious, yet they do not immediately attack, watching him from a distance. Instead of drawing his weapon, Mongrel takes out preserved food. He studies it briefly, as if testing an idea rather than preparing for combat. Calmly, he eats while standing in front of the goblins. The creatures remain confused, drawn more by curiosity than aggression, as they watch his unusual behavior. Mongrel observes their reactions and concludes they are not entirely reckless. Their hesitation suggests they can be controlled or redirected, turning the encounter into something more manageable than expected. Mongrel raises his hand and signals toward the goblins, attempting to control the situation with a simple gesture. The creatures react with excitement, drawn in by his unusual behavior. For a moment, Mongrel hesitates as the goblins' reaction becomes unpredictable. Their expressions shift, and the calm atmosphere begins to break. Realizing the risk, Mongrel quickly changes his approach. He understands that provoking them further could lead to unnecessary danger. Without delay, he turns and runs through the fields, leading the goblins away from the crops. The creatures chase after him, focused entirely on his movement. Even while fleeing, Mongrel remains composed and continues eating. The strange scene unfolds as he draws them farther from the farmland, turning the threat into a controlled distraction. Mongrel slows his pace and turns toward the pursuing goblins. A shift in his expression signals that he is no longer avoiding conflict and is ready to act. In a single motion he strikes decisively. The first goblin falls instantly, while another rushes forward without understanding the gap in strength. The fight ends quickly as Mongrel eliminates the remaining threats. With the danger gone, he casually informs the farmer that the situation has been handled. The aftermath reveals the result of his actions. The farmer reacts to the scene, while Mongrel shows little concern, already losing interest once the task is complete. As calm returns, a new presence emerges from the field. A large serpent appears, its sudden arrival breaking the quiet. Mongrel turns to face it, realizing the situation is not over yet. Lena reacts with surprise upon hearing unexpected news. In contrast, a calm woman across from him remains composed, showing quiet confidence. Her expression suggests she made a decision without much concern, while he struggles to understand it. Inside the guild, Lena leans forward, still confused by her reasoning. Meanwhile, Myrene sits casually at the table, explaining her actions without hesitation. The atmosphere feels ordinary, yet his unease continues to grow. Doubt crosses his face as he tries to process the situation. Behind him, Mongrel appears briefly, adding to the pressure he feels. Lena maintains a relaxed posture, as if the matter is already settled. Frustration builds, and Lena raises his voice through his gestures. Myrene listens, without reacting strongly, her calm attitude contrasting his agitation. Despite his insistence, she refuses to reconsider. A memory of a past mission surfaces, showing a battle against a powerful enemy. Lena recalls the outcome, linking it to her current decision. Realization begins to form, even as his emotions remain unsettled. Lena lowers his gaze, weighed down by his own thoughts. Across from him, the woman watches calmly, showing mild curiosity. His expression reveals hesitation, as if struggling to accept something simple. Leaning closer, he gathers the courage to express what he truly wanted. Myrene listens with a soft, composed demeanor. Rather than rejecting him, she reflects on his intentions and acknowledges his effort. A quiet pause settles between them as his tension eases slightly. He touches his face, still unsure of himself, while she maintains a gentle, knowing look. Gradually, his thoughts begin to align with her perspective. Myrene shifts the mood by suggesting a brief rest. She reaches for a document and begins writing, handling the situation with ease. Meanwhile, he stands nearby, feeling both relieved and uncertain. Seated together again, the conversation turns calmer. Lena reflects on her growth and changing behavior. Nearby, other guild members appear, hinting at shared experiences. A sense of quiet understanding begins to form between them. Mongrel sits across from Lena, reflecting on how their meeting shaped his path. A quiet realization forms as he considers that his life might have turned out differently without her presence. Lena observes him with a steady gaze, sensing his thoughts. Lowering his posture, Mongrel reveals a deeper concern about her being alone. His expression grows serious, showing care beyond simple companionship. Lena listens calmly, her face soft but attentive to his sincerity. With composed confidence, Lena acknowledges his concern while maintaining her independence. She considers her own choices carefully, showing that her path is not decided lightly. Mongrel absorbs her stance, beginning to understand her perspective. A memory surfaces of a powerful swordsman in battle, representing both physical and mental strength. The image reinforces Mongrel's understanding of resilience. He connects this idea to Lena's ability to stand firm on her own decisions. Calm assurance returns to Lena as she holds her drink, her expression steady and resolved. Mongrel watches quietly, realizing that she follows her own principles. Acceptance settles in, and he recognizes her strength without needing to question it further. Mongrel shows a faint smile while sitting across from Lena. A light atmosphere replaces the earlier tension, and his expression becomes more relaxed. Lena notices the change, quietly observing his shift in mood. Looking upward, Mongrel reflects on the nature of strength and character. His thoughts move beyond simple ideas of right and wrong. Gradually, he begins to see a broader perspective shaped by experience. A sudden memory forms of a strange man declaring himself with overwhelming confidence. The scene shifts to a village where he stands before a group of children. His presence appears chaotic and exaggerated. The villagers react with confusion and concern as they face the strange figure. Adults remain wary, while the children show mixed emotions. Uneasiness spreads through the group as they try to understand his intentions. The situation turns almost absurd as the man interacts with the children. Despite his loud behavior, he fails to establish control or fear. The moment highlights the gap between his claims and reality. The strange man destroys a weapon to demonstrate his power. Nearby children watch in shock as he claims control over unseen energy. His actions appear forceful, yet unclear in purpose. Holding a tool with confidence, he explains a task to the villagers. He presents himself as someone important, expecting cooperation. The children listen, uncertain, but drawn into his demands. Raising his voice, the man declares a larger goal tied to defeating a greater force. His intensity increases, trying to inspire action. The children react with confusion, struggling to follow his logic. Soon, the children begin moving, responding to his instructions. Some run off to gather materials. While others hesitate briefly before following, the man stands behind them, satisfied as his plan begins to unfold. Later, the scene shifts to a quieter moment with an older man speaking to Mongrel. The situation is described as difficult, with limited help available. Mongrel listens calmly, observing the outcome of the earlier chaos, and understanding the burden left behind. Mongrel sits beside an elderly man, listening carefully as he explains the villagers' condition. The situation appears difficult, with many suffering from illness and exhaustion. Mongrel observes quietly, taking in the seriousness of the problem. Nearby, several villagers gather around harvested crops while discussing their struggles. Physical pain and lack of proper care weigh heavily on them. Their daily work continues, but their condition makes it harder to endure. The elderly man reflects on the harsh reality they face. From a distance, Mongrel watches the villagers, noticing their efforts, despite their suffering. A sense of helplessness lingers, as their situation remains unchanged. Older villagers appear weakened, their condition worsening over time. Without proper treatment, their strength continues to fade. The image highlights the quiet toll of neglect and limited resources. Turning his attention back, Mongrel considers another aspect of the problem. The elderly man explains the difficulty of introducing change, especially regarding education. Mongrel listens in silence, beginning to understand that the issue extends beyond illness alone. Mongrel listens as the elderly man explains the severe shortage of healers. In the distance, villagers continue their daily routines. Despite the lack of support, the problem appears widespread and difficult to solve. The elderly man lowers his gaze, admitting his limits in helping others. Mongrel watches him closely, recognizing the burden he carries. A quiet understanding forms as the weight of responsibility becomes clear. Mongrel reflects on the nature of healers and the difficulty of their role. The explanation continues with an example of healing being more complex than other skills. This realization adds another layer to the village's struggle. A scene shifts to education, showing a classroom where knowledge is being taught. However, another view reveals children working in fields instead of studying. Opportunities remain limited, preventing growth and change. Standing alone, the elderly man looks ahead with quiet determination. His wish is simple, hoping for a healthier life for the villagers. Despite the challenges, his resolve remains steady as he continues seeking a way forward. Mongrel listens as the elderly man admits his limitations. The answer is simple yet heavy, offering little hope for immediate change. A sharp realization strikes Mongrel, shown by the sudden shift in his expression. They walk through the village together, observing daily life. Villagers continue their routines, despite hardship, while others struggle quietly. The contrast between effort and condition becomes clear. Later, the atmosphere changes as villagers gather and celebrate. Laughter spreads, and Mongrel is pulled into the moment, holding a drink among them. Although he joins in, his expression carries a hint of lingering thought. Eventually, a departure begins as a wagon prepares to leave the village. The elderly man speaks with others while children watch. Mongrel stands slightly apart, reflecting on everything he has seen. Back in town, Mongrel returns to a quiet space and prepares a meal alone. The calm setting contrasts with the earlier scenes. His focus shifts inward, suggesting he is still processing the village's situation. Mongrel studies a document carefully, examining its contents with focus. He presses a seal onto it, completing the process with precision. The task appears formal, suggesting preparation for something important. A faint smile forms as he holds the finished letter. A sense of responsibility settles in, as he considers returning the favor he once received. Determination quietly replaces his earlier uncertainty. Later, a cloaked figure moves through the town under dim light. The figure carries a bag, heading toward a distant destination. Beyond the buildings, a wide landscape stretches under the rising sun. Inside a building, a man urgently presents a letter to the elderly figure. The message draws immediate attention, marked by its distinctive seal. Its origin hints at something unusual and significant. The elderly man reads the contents with a calm expression. As more letters are discussed, it becomes clear that similar messages have reached different places. The situation begins to connect into a larger, unfolding development. A document is examined closely, revealing instructions for a simple medicinal mixture. The formula appears practical, using common ingredients to treat basic conditions. Its purpose suggests a solution meant for widespread use. Excitement rises as the young man realizes the value of the information. The elderly man remains composed, understanding both its importance and the risks involved. Urgency grows as they consider acting before others interfere. Standing inside the room, the two discuss the possibility of sharing the method with other places. The idea expands beyond a single village, pointing toward broader impact. The situation begins to shift from local concern to something much larger. Caution emerges as the elderly man considers the consequences. Questions of safety, reliability, and misuse surface. The young man hesitates, realizing that spreading knowledge carries responsibility. A shadowed figure appears in thought, representing the origin of the message. The elderly man holds the letter firmly, understanding its intent. The goal becomes clear: to spread knowledge carefully, ensuring it reaches others without causing harm. A robed woman reflects on the value of the recipe, recognizing its simplicity and accessibility. Nearby, the others consider its potential, realizing it is not something rare or exclusive. The idea of widespread use begins to take shape. The elderly man smiles with quiet hope, seeing the possibility of saving many lives. The young man responds with renewed determination, no longer hesitating. Confidence grows as they accept the path forward. With the decision made, preparations begin immediately. The atmosphere shifts toward action as their roles become clear. A sense of purpose replaces earlier uncertainty. Inside a shop, shelves filled with tools and goods frame a new beginning. The place becomes a center for developing and sharing the idea. Mongrel observes closely, considering how this plan will take form. A shopkeeper evaluates the concept, noting its difference from expensive goods. Instead of luxury, the focus turns toward accessibility for ordinary people. The discussion highlights a new direction, aiming to reach those who need it most. Mongrel discusses a new idea with the shopkeeper, presenting something different from usual tools. The shopkeeper listens carefully, trying to understand its purpose. Mongrel's expression shows quiet confidence as he explains. A cloaked figure is recalled, hinting at the origin of the idea. The concept spreads, without direct ownership, reaching workshops and merchants. Back in the shop, the shopkeeper acknowledges its growing influence. The shopkeeper reflects on how the idea has already improved business. Sales increase as practical items gain attention. Mongrel listens, realizing the impact is larger than expected. Another merchant appears, recalling how trade once focused on exclusivity and control. The shift toward accessible goods challenges that system. The contrast reveals tension between old methods and new approaches. A brief image of conflict emerges, showing disputes tied to competition. Back inside the shop, the shopkeeper explains that rivalry is natural in trade. Mongrel remains calm, understanding that spreading useful ideas also invites resistance. A cloaked mongrel stands among scattered papers, spreading his ideas without claiming ownership. The plan is simple, allowing others to use and develop the invention freely. His approach focuses on accessibility rather than control. Soon, reactions begin to appear from merchants and workers. Some express concern over disruption, while others struggle to adapt. Mongrel finds himself surrounded by opinions, realizing the complexity of changing established systems. Despite the tension, the product gains attention in the city. People begin to accept it as useful, and demand gradually increases. Mongrel watches this shift, understanding that the idea is taking root back in the shop. The shopkeeper notes small but steady changes in trade. The new item influences daily business, even if only slightly at first. Mongrel listens, observing how his decision affects others. Over time, the spread of the product leads to rising demand for related materials. Mongrel reflects quietly, accepting both the benefits and complications. The situation remains balanced, leaving the future open as progress continues. Several loaves of bread are shown as simple food made from harvested wheat. Once the harvest season ends, the value of crops drops, making bread easy to obtain and inexpensive. A man reacts strongly after tasting the bread, overwhelmed with dissatisfaction. Tears run down his face as he realizes the food in this world lacks flavor. Frustration builds as he longs for something truly enjoyable to eat, expressing a deep desire for better taste. Attention shifts to compact food bars made from ingredients like nuts. Two guild members examine them closely, recognizing them as portable rations created by Mongrel. Their expressions show concern and confusion about the quality and purpose of the food. The two men sit together with Mongrel at a table, discussing the strange food. Doubt appears as they question its naming and appeal. Mongrel remains confident, presenting the item as a practical solution despite their unease. The food bars are placed on the table as the discussion continues. Consideration turns toward their effectiveness rather than taste. While they may not be filling, the possibility of slight satisfaction is acknowledged, leaving their value uncertain. 2 food bars are snapped apart, showing their dry and dense texture. At the table, the men begin eating while Mongrel explains that around 4 pieces should be enough for a meal. Doubt quickly spreads as the 2 guild members react with discomfort. Their strained expressions suggest the taste is far from pleasant. Mongrel watches calmly, questioning their reaction while they struggle to continue eating. Suspicion grows stronger as one of them reflects on past experiences with preserved food. His sharp gaze reveals concern, as if comparing this strange ration to something more familiar yet unsettling. Mongrel shifts the mood, dismissing the hesitation and encouraging a forward-looking mindset. In the background, a girl pauses near a barrel, observing the scene with quiet curiosity, while he remains confident in his approach. The group returns to the table with drinks added to the meal. Mongrel casually pours alcohol, showing little concern for deeper meaning. He reassures them that the food is not terrible, urging them to keep eating despite their lingering unease. One of the men hesitates but decides to continue eating the food bar. He raises it slowly and takes a bite, showing mild acceptance despite earlier doubts. A sudden stiffness spreads across his face as he struggles to chew. His teeth barely move against the hard texture, revealing the food's unexpected toughness. The others watch closely, noticing the unnatural resistance. Seeing the difficulty, Mongrel suggests soaking the food in ale to soften it. The idea shifts the approach, and the men prepare to try again with slight reluctance. After dipping the food, the man takes another bite. This time, the texture improves slightly, allowing him to chew. The taste still feels unusual, but it becomes more manageable than before. Discussion continues as the group reflects on the strange creation. One acknowledges the effort behind the idea, while another questions its usefulness. Mongrel remains unfazed, presenting it as a practical option despite mixed reactions. Mongrel explains his idea further, imagining the food bars as official portable rations for the army. In his mind, he casually envisions himself working as a cafe master instead, polishing glasses and living a relaxed life funded by such creations. The others react with disbelief as they examine the bar again. One dips it into ale, noting it does not fall apart, while concern grows that using such food before battle could cause more harm than good. Attention shifts to the quantity produced. A rough estimate suggests dozens of these bars have already been made, raising questions about wasted effort and resources. Mongrel becomes irritated as their reactions continue. Frustration shows on his face, while the 2 men struggle to respond, unable to offer clear praise for the strange invention. The mood settles into uneasy acceptance, as one of them comments on Mongrel's tendency for unusual ideas. Doubt remains about the cost and usefulness, leaving the invention seen as more trouble than benefit. Mongrel stands calmly, appearing satisfied with his thoughts while the others watch him with confusion. His relaxed attitude contrasts with their concern, as they question his tendency to create unnecessary things. A sudden shift in mood appears as Mongrel smiles with intensity. His expression suggests he is already thinking of another unusual idea, leaving the others uneasy about what he might present next. The 2 men react with frustration, pointing out his habit of wasting money. One mentions a recent purchase, implying that Mongrel continues to spend without clear purpose. Without hesitation, Mongrel reveals a strange weapon shaped, unlike a normal sword. He presents it proudly, treating it as a new invention, while its odd design immediately draws silent doubt from the others. The group sits around the table again, staring at the object in confusion. Uncertainty fills the room as they struggle to understand its use, while Mongrel remains confident in his decision. Mongrel confidently presents the strange weapon, explaining its unique serrated section. He demonstrates how it can catch an opponent's blade and twist it with force, emphasizing its unusual combat function. From his perspective, the weapon becomes a powerful anti-sword tool. He imagines enemy blades breaking under its grip, treating it as an ultimate solution against standard swords. The others quickly point out flaws in his reasoning. Concerns arise about its impractical use, as the design seems difficult to handle effectively in real combat. Doubt replaces any initial curiosity. Mongrel pauses, listening as criticism continues. One of the men examines the weapon more closely, questioning why such a design was chosen in the first place, while still trying to understand its intended purpose. A test follows as the serrated section is pressed against another blade. The result shows little effectiveness, confirming the earlier concerns and leaving the weapon's usefulness in serious doubt. Mongrel reacts with an intense expression as criticism continues. Despite the doubts, he clings to his idea, insisting that the weapon still has some value, even if only barely effective. The focus shifts back to the table, as questions arise about the cost of the weapon. Mongrel lowers his head, avoiding a clear answer, suggesting that the purchase may not have been reasonable. Frustration finally overwhelms him, and his composure breaks. The others remain seated, watching as he struggles to defend his decisions, while the situation becomes more chaotic. The conversation winds down as the group reflects on Mongrel's behavior. One of them comments on his tendency to act impulsively, while another hints at future opportunities where his ideas might still be useful. Attention shifts outward, introducing the broader world of adventurers. Groups of guild members are shown preparing for missions, emphasizing cooperation and balance, contrasting with Mongrel's unusual and unpredictable approach. Attention shifts to a well-known party in the city, recognized for their strong teamwork and consistent achievements. Their reputation is built on completing difficult requests and handling subjugation missions efficiently. Mongrel observes them from a distance while reflecting on their structure. The group consists mainly of well-trained knights, making their operations stable, but also demanding in terms of cost and maintenance. Another party is introduced, composed of rougher individuals who prefer direct combat. Their organization feels less formal, functioning more like a group bound by mutual support, rather than strict roles. Despite their strength, even close groups can break apart. Differences in ability or circumstances often lead to members leaving, showing that stability within parties is not guaranteed. Mongrel compares these groups to his own perspective. He sees them as loosely connected teams rather than something meaningful, suggesting that he does not view such bonds as truly special or lasting. A new party is introduced, composed entirely of elegant women. Their refined appearance hides their combat roles, with most members specializing in ranged attacks such as bows and magic. Scenes of their work reveal a balanced structure, combining both long-distance fighters and solid frontline members. Their versatility allows them to take on requests from noble families as well. Although they appear graceful, their reputation carries a darker edge. It is said that crossing them leads to severe consequences, giving them a feared presence despite their beauty. Mongrel reflects on the group with discomfort. He recognizes their strength, but avoids involvement, sensing that getting close would bring unnecessary trouble. Another faction is shown, focused on security and protection work. Unlike typical adventurers, they handle guarding buildings and valuable assets, presenting a different path within the same world. Mongrel sits quietly, thinking about how to explain himself. His expression shows slight concern as he considers how his actions might appear to others. Suddenly, a woman from the Artemis party approaches with a firm presence. She confronts him directly, bringing up an incident involving one of her members, and demanding an explanation. Mongrel responds calmly, recognizing her as the leader. He acknowledges the situation while maintaining a composed attitude, though the tension between them remains clear. The discussion continues as she presses him further. Mongrel insists there was no ill intent, claiming he handled the situation carefully despite how it appeared. The woman is revealed as Sheena, a highly respected leader known for her strength and noble background. Her authority is clear as she questions Mongrel's actions, leaving him under serious scrutiny. Mongrel describes the monster they encountered, explaining its tough body and how it was not an easy opponent. He recalls the situation calmly, suggesting that defeating it alone would have been difficult. The explanation continues as he mentions the circumstances of the fight. The terrain worked in their favor, allowing them to cross the river safely, which reduced the danger despite the encounter. Sheena steps closer, questioning his words with sharp intent. She challenges whether his actions were coincidence or a deliberate display of ability, forcing him to confront the meaning behind what he did, with a firm stance. She presents a condition. She demands that Mongrel prove his capability by taking on a joint request, making it clear that his strength must be properly understood. Her tone softens slightly as she explains her reason. Protecting her companion is important to her, and she refuses to risk unnecessary danger, leaving Mongrel facing both pressure and expectation. Mongrel accepts the condition after a brief pause. He acknowledges the responsibility of a leader and agrees to prove his strength, deciding to move forward alongside them despite the pressure. Sheena responds with calm approval. Her expression softens slightly, showing that she accepts his decision and is willing to see what he can truly do. Mongrel begins to explain his past actions, revealing that the situation involved multiple enemies and unexpected circumstances. His tone suggests confidence, insisting that the matter cannot be dismissed so easily. Sheena challenges him further, proposing a direct test of his ability. She demands to see his skill firsthand, pushing him to demonstrate what he is capable of in a clear and undeniable way. Mongrel prepares himself, holding his weapon as his mindset shifts. He resolves to fight properly, showing that he intends to prove his strength through action rather than words. Sheena prepares to leave after setting the condition, stating that she will contact him once the joint request is decided. Mongrel watches her, uncertain about what will happen next as the situation remains unresolved. Before leaving, she pauses and looks back with suspicion. Her gaze questions his resolve, as if expecting him to back out despite his earlier acceptance. Mongrel suddenly shifts his focus, bringing up his portable rations again. He presents them with determination, attempting to turn the moment into an opportunity by offering them as items for sale. The attempt fails immediately as Sheena shows no interest. Mongrel lowers his posture, accepting the rejection, while she stands firm, leaving the conversation with a clear lack of approval. A quiet street stretches between tall buildings as a small group gathers near the entrance. Mongrel stands ahead of them, facing the others with a relaxed posture while observing their arrival. The atmosphere feels calm, yet a task seems to be waiting. 3 women approach from the gate, each carrying themselves with confidence. They stop in front of Mongrel, forming a loose line. Their attention focuses on him, while he checks the group, as if confirming their readiness. Mongrel reveals his identity as a swordsman, holding a small badge to show his rank. Behind the group, 2 more members appear, completing the team. The formation becomes clearer, suggesting a temporary party assembled for a mission. A young archer steps forward with energy, presenting herself as a capable fighter. She reaches out and establishes a friendly connection with Mongrel. Her expression shows eagerness, adding a lighter tone to the gathering. A composed mage stands apart, holding a staff with authority. Her presence carries weight, indicating higher skill and experience. She studies Mongrel carefully, as if measuring his true ability before allowing the mission to proceed. A large armored man suddenly strikes Mongrel, forcing him to recoil under the impact. The man stands towering above him, his expression cold and unreadable. Mongrel steadies himself, clearly caught off guard by the sudden action. The group quickly intervenes, guiding Mongrel forward to properly acknowledge the man. He hesitates for a moment before adjusting his posture and showing respect. The armored man introduces himself as a higher-ranked swordsman, his presence firm and imposing. Mongrel steps back, unease visible in his expression. The archer moves closer, quietly reassuring him while observing the situation. Behind them, the large man remains silent, his intense gaze adding pressure to the atmosphere. The archer continues explaining the situation, clarifying the misunderstanding about the armored man. Mongrel listens while still unsettled, trying to process the encounter. His frustration briefly surfaces before he regains composure. As the tension fades, the archer reveals more about the group's internal dynamics. Mongrel looks on, absorbing the information while standing near her. The moment settles into an uneasy calm, hinting that further challenges await the newly formed team. The tension softens as one of the women smiles with quiet confidence. She studies Mongrel closely, appearing satisfied after observing the earlier exchange. Others remain nearby, watching his reaction with mild curiosity. Mongrel shifts the focus toward the task ahead, signaling the need to move quickly. The group gathers more tightly, forming a circle as they prepare to leave. Their attention turns from introductions to the mission itself. A discussion begins regarding leadership and direction. The team subtly looks toward Mongrel, suggesting he may take responsibility for guiding them. He stands among them listening, while considering the expectations placed on him. Mongrel accepts the situation with a calm expression showing readiness to act. One member observes him carefully, still measuring his ability. The moment highlights a quiet test as his role within the group becomes clearer. The group settles into a cooperative stance, with each member acknowledging the others. Mongrel stands at the center, now recognized as part of the team. Their formation stabilizes, signaling the beginning of their shared journey. The mood lightens as one member smiles brightly, signaling agreement. Soon after, the scene shifts beyond the city walls toward a vast forest, marking the true start of their mission. The group moves along a narrow path surrounded by dense trees. Mongrel walks at the front while the others follow closely behind. Their formation remains steady as they proceed deeper into unfamiliar territory. A serious explanation is given regarding the task. The objective involves dealing with traps left in the forest and recovering what was lost. The tone grows more focused as the mission details become clear. Mongrel reflects on the dangers ahead, considering the possible fates of those who entered before them. His expression tightens briefly, showing concern, though he continues forward without stopping. At last, a small wooden cabin appears among the trees. It stands quietly in the clearing, suggesting temporary safety. The team pauses nearby, aware that their real work will begin before darkness falls. Danger becomes clear as creatures lurking in the forest are revealed. Mongrel studies the threat with a calm but alert expression. The possibility of sudden attacks settles over the group, raising the tension. The team continues forward along the forest path in a steady formation. Mongrel walks ahead, quietly taking responsibility while observing their surroundings. Each member remains cautious as they advance deeper. The archer speaks with a light attitude, mentioning rewards and how tasks are usually handled. Her tone contrasts with the serious situation, bringing a brief sense of ease to the group. Mongrel reacts to her comments with mild frustration, while she explains his unusual habits. He defends his actions as practical choices rather than mistakes. Their exchange shows a difference in perspective, but no real conflict. Attention shifts as Mongrel presents a weapon he brought along. The group gathers behind him, watching with curiosity. He raises a bow, confidently revealing preparation that surprises the others and hints at hidden versatility. Mongrel demonstrates his weapon, showing how it functions both as a bow and a blade. He moves with controlled precision, illustrating its use for ranged attacks before closing distance for close combat. The group watches in silence, their expressions shifting to confusion. His explanation seems unusual, and they struggle to understand the practicality of his method. Doubt begins to spread among them. Mongrel reveals the limitation of his preparation, admitting he brought only a single arrow. The team reacts with disbelief, realizing the lack of proper equipment. Their expectations drop as his approach appears unreliable. He attempts to justify the situation by pointing out the short distance to a nearby target. His reasoning suggests confidence despite the clear shortcomings. The explanation fails to ease the group's concern. The others respond with visible skepticism, unable to accept his strategy. Mongrel turns away and begins walking ahead, leaving them to follow. Their formation resumes, but uncertainty lingers as they continue deeper into the forest. Mongrel suddenly reacts, sensing something unusual ahead. He stops the group and points out a hidden danger along the path. The others pause behind him, their attention shifting toward the ground. A concealed trap is revealed, simple in design but placed carefully. The team studies it, noting the lack of complexity, yet recognizing its purpose. Even without refinement, it poses a real threat to the unaware. Mongrel crouches and begins to dismantle the trap with steady hands. His focus sharpens as he carefully handles the mechanism. The archer watches nearby, observing his method while remaining cautious. After disabling it, Mongrel comments on the crude construction and the people who might have set it. His thoughts suggest concern about inexperienced individuals creating such dangers. The group listens, considering the broader situation. The leader studies him from a short distance, quietly reassessing his ability. Mongrel rises from the ground, having completed the task without difficulty. A subtle shift in perception forms, as his competence becomes more evident. The mood briefly turns playful, as the group reacts to Mongrel's actions. Some members tease while others remain unimpressed. Despite the lighter tone, a sense of evaluation still lingers around him. The team regains order and continues deeper into the forest. The environment grows denser, and the path becomes less clear. Mongrel walks ahead, maintaining awareness as the surroundings subtly change. A quiet moment follows as Mongrel reflects on his own abilities. Doubt surfaces within him, suggesting uncertainty about his skills, despite his experience. He continues forward, hiding those thoughts from the others. The archer suddenly notices something on the ground and calls attention to it. The group gathers as they discover clear footprints pressed into the soil. The trail indicates recent movement, drawing their focus forward. Excitement rises as the discovery confirms progress in their mission. The group reacts with renewed energy, encouraged by the sign they have been searching for. Mongrel remains composed, watching as the others celebrate the lead. The group identifies the target as a large horned creature. Its presence suggests a dangerous opponent, and the team studies its traits carefully. Attention shifts toward understanding how it moves and where it might be heading. They gather around the tracks, analyzing the direction of travel. Signs indicate movement toward a water source, narrowing the search area. The forest floor reveals enough clues to guide their next steps. Discussion turns toward strategy, but the leader discourages overthinking. Mongrel stands nearby, listening while offering a simple observation. His input contrasts with the more detailed analysis of the others. The leader acknowledges his straightforward reasoning without fully agreeing. Mongrel accepts this calmly, showing no concern about differing approaches. The group prepares to continue without delay. They advance through the forest. Now with a clearer objective, Mongrel walks among them, suggesting that facing the creature directly may reveal more. The team moves forward, ready to confront whatever lies ahead. Mongrel pauses and raises his weapon, showing interest in testing it during the mission. His expression shifts slightly, suggesting curiosity rather than urgency. The moment feels calm before any real confrontation begins. Movement ahead catches his attention as two goblins appear along the path. Their posture is aggressive, and their presence confirms nearby danger. Mongrel observes them quietly from a distance. The group gathers behind him, forming a line as they face the approaching enemies. The goblins turn toward them, preparing to engage. Tension builds as both sides recognize each other. A quick analysis follows, noting the increasing number of such creatures in the area. The situation suggests they may have been driven out or forced to gather here. Mongrel listens while considering their next move. The leader steps forward and signals for action, deciding to handle the threat efficiently. The team prepares to strike, shifting from observation to combat readiness. The encounter is about to begin. Mongrel steps forward and signals the others to stay back. His posture shifts from relaxed to focused, showing sudden confidence. The group watches in silence, unsure of what he intends to do. He declares that a single arrow is enough to handle the situation. His expression sharpens, carrying certainty despite the earlier doubts. The statement creates confusion among the team, who struggle to understand his reasoning. Mongrel moves ahead alone, drawing his bow with steady control. His body aligns toward the targets as he prepares to strike. The others remain behind, observing his actions with mixed curiosity and concern. Some members react with disbelief at his unusual stance and distance. His positioning seems impractical to them, adding to their skepticism. Still, they continue watching, unable to look away from the attempt. The arrow is released with precision, cutting through the air toward the goblins. The shot travels cleanly, marking the beginning of his attack. In that instant, his earlier confidence begins to take form through action. The arrow misses its target and strikes a tree instead. The goblin remains unharmed, while Mongrel's expression turns blank with disappointment. The outcome contrasts sharply with his earlier confidence. The group reacts immediately, some laughing, while others show clear disbelief. Mongrel stands silently as their reactions build around him. The situation shifts from tension to embarrassment. Without hesitation, Mongrel rushes forward and switches to close combat. He raises his blade and attacks directly, abandoning his previous plan. His movements become more forceful as he closes the distance. The fight ends quickly as he defeats the enemy at close range. The leader observes calmly, noting that this approach suits him better. Mongrel lowers his weapon, the result leaving little room for doubt. After the battle, he avoids eye contact and shows clear frustration. The others comment on his actions, while the mood turns light again. Despite the earlier failure, the group continues forward with a mix of humor and acceptance. Mongrel lowers his weapon and regains composure after the fight. He reflects on his choice, recognizing that his sword offers more reliability in combat. His confidence begins to return in a quieter, more grounded way. The leader questions his approach, pointing out the limits of his current weapon choices. Mongrel listens while maintaining a calm expression, showing little resistance to the criticism. The exchange remains controlled and direct. Mongrel responds with renewed confidence, suggesting that his weapon still holds untapped potential. His expression sharpens, hinting that his strength is not fully understood. The others observe him more carefully than before. The archer speaks with enthusiasm, recalling how he helped her earlier. Her reaction contrasts with the more reserved attitudes around them. Mongrel remains quiet, letting her words settle within the group. Another member reflects on his abilities with a thoughtful expression. Mongrel stands nearby, calm and composed, as the team slowly reassesses him. Their journey continues with a growing awareness of his hidden capability. The mood relaxes as the group settles after the earlier fight. The archer speaks casually, suggesting a friendly match in the future. Mongrel reacts with slight hesitation, showing discomfort at the idea. A pot of food simmers over a fire. As the team takes a short break, they gather around and eat together, restoring energy. The atmosphere becomes calmer, allowing them to recover before continuing. After resting, Mongrel moves ahead while scanning the surroundings. His attention shifts back to the mission, and his posture becomes more alert. The others follow, maintaining their formation. The cabin comes back into view, standing quietly within the clearing. Smoke rises from the chimney, suggesting recent activity. The sight immediately changes the mood of the group. Mongrel notices signs of someone already being there. He stops and observes carefully, alerting the others through his expression. The team approaches cautiously, aware that the situation may not be as expected. Several men rest near the cabin, carrying tools and supplies. Their presence suggests the area is being used regularly. Mongrel observes them carefully, noting that the place is not abandoned as expected. The group gathers close as the situation becomes clearer. Suspicion rises among them while they assess the unfamiliar people. Mongrel lowers his gaze slightly, considering the possibility of trouble. They move forward toward the cabin together, now fully aware of the risk. The building stands ahead as a likely base for dangerous activity. A tense silence forms as the team prepares for whatever awaits inside. A simple workshop rested quietly in the forest, prepared for travelers needing shelter and tools. Access was limited to those approved by the guild, keeping its use controlled. Despite that, the entrance showed no sign of being secured, suggesting something unusual. That detail raised concern. Places like this often attracted opportunistic fighters who gathered in numbers. From the outside, the building appeared calm, yet traces of recent activity hinted that it had already been occupied. Mongrel arrived with his companions and observed the surroundings carefully. Attention shifted toward signs of use nearby. A prepared carcass and equipment indicated that someone had been staying there for some time. Inside, the remains were hung neatly with rope, showing deliberate handling rather than neglect. The arrangement reflected experience and familiarity with such tasks. Mongrel examined the setup, focusing on the method used. After a closer look, he recognized the knot and binding style. It matched a common technique known among adventurers. This detail confirmed that the occupants were not random intruders, but individuals following established practices. Mongrel examined the rope again, recognizing it as a method often used by adventurers. Minor violations like this were common, yet ignoring them could lead to bigger problems. Standing there, he considered the situation carefully instead of overlooking it. The group faced the workshop as the sun began to lower. Time was limited, and staying nearby through the night would be risky. Mongrel understood that dealing with the occupants could not be delayed. Attention turned toward how to approach the situation. Mongrel suggested handling things before nightfall, weighing the options in his mind. His companion observed him closely, understanding that a decision was about to be made. Rather than stepping forward immediately, he chose to watch first. The idea was to understand how the others would act before taking any action. This approach reflected caution rather than hesitation. Behind him, the group stood ready, showing no signs of backing down. Their presence added weight to the situation, making it clear that support was available if needed. With that, the next step rested entirely on Mongrel's judgment. Mongrel weighed the situation carefully, knowing that ignoring the violation would only cause more trouble later. Handling it directly seemed unavoidable, even if it meant dealing with unknown individuals. A quick resolution would be the most practical path. With that in mind, he moved toward the workshop while his companion stayed behind. The others watched quietly, aware that this step would determine what came next. His approach remained steady and controlled. Standing before the door, Mongrel raised his hand and knocked firmly. The sound echoed through the quiet structure, breaking the stillness. He waited without tension, showing no sign of hesitation. Inside, movement followed the knock. Figures gathered near the entrance, reacting to the unexpected presence. Outside, the group observed closely, ready to respond if the situation turned hostile. When the door opened, Mongrel stood calmly and identified himself as a guild member. His expression remained neutral, showing neither aggression nor fear. From his stance alone, it was clear he had no intention of backing away. Inside the workshop, Mongrel faced 3 men gathered around a small fire. Their posture showed caution, but not immediate aggression. Supplies and food were spread nearby, confirming they had settled in without permission. Recognition of the situation came quickly. The men understood they had been found, and tension filled the room. Mongrel remained calm, already deciding how to handle them, without escalating the situation. He raised the rope he had examined earlier, using it as quiet evidence. The method matched what he had seen outside, linking them directly to the misuse of the place. At the same time, he considered the proper way to resolve this, under guild rules. Stepping forward, Mongrel presented a token from the guild. Its presence made his authority clear without needing force. The men's reaction shifted as they realized who stood before them. Silence followed as the weight of the situation settled. Mongrel's expression stayed steady, showing control over the encounter. With the outcome already leaning in his favor, the matter was close to being resolved. Inside the workshop, the 3 men tried to ease the tension. Their posture softened as they explained their situation, showing signs of hardship rather than hostility. Mongrel listened without interrupting, keeping his stance steady. One of them stepped forward, attempting to justify their actions. The explanation centered on necessity, not intent, as they asked for leniency. Mongrel remained quiet, weighing their words against the rules he followed. The forest and its management came to mind, along with the responsibility tied to the guild. Allowing even small violations could weaken trust and order. That thought made the decision clearer in his mind. His expression sharpened as he looked directly at them. The seriousness of his role became evident, leaving little room for compromise. The atmosphere shifted, turning heavier with expectation. The 3 men reacted immediately, their confidence fading under his gaze. Unease replaced their earlier attempts to negotiate. At that moment, they understood that Mongrel would not simply overlook what had been done. Mongrel stood calmly, while one of the men raised a weapon, the tension rising again. Despite that, his expression remained unchanged, showing little interest in escalating the conflict. He made it clear that force was not his preferred approach. Instead, he suggested moving outside where there was more space. The cramped room limited movement, making any clash more dangerous. His proposal sounded simple, yet it carried a hidden advantage. Then he revealed more information about his allies waiting outside. Their abilities and numbers were far beyond what the three men expected. Each detail added pressure, shifting the balance completely. The reaction was immediate. Confidence disappeared as the men realized they had underestimated the situation. Fear replaced their earlier resistance, and their resolve began to crumble. Mongrel maintained control, offering them a chance to step outside and settle things properly. His tone stayed steady, but the outcome was already clear. At that point, the choice left to them was no longer equal. The tension finally broke as the men rejected Mongrel's reasoning. Their frustration turned into open hostility, and weapons were raised without hesitation. At that moment, any chance of resolving things peacefully disappeared. One of them stepped forward, deciding to act first rather than wait. The situation shifted rapidly from negotiation to confrontation. Mongrel watched closely, already prepared for what would follow. A quiet realization crossed his mind as he faced them. The outcome had become inevitable, and the discussion had reached its end. Accepting that, he adjusted his stance without urgency. As the attack began, Mongrel moved instantly, slipping past the strike with precise timing. His motion was clean and controlled, avoiding unnecessary effort. The difference in skill became clear in a single moment. Outside, arrows were already aimed from his allies, covering the entrance. The sudden pressure caught the attackers off guard, leaving them frozen in confusion. In that instant, the fight was effectively decided. Mongrel moved first, closing the distance in a single motion. His strike came clean and direct, forcing one opponent back before they could react. Behind him, his allies maintained pressure with steady aim. The three men hesitated as the situation shifted again. What had seemed like a simple confrontation now felt overwhelming. Mongrel advanced without rushing, controlling the pace of the fight. One of them tried to attack, raising his weapon with urgency. The attempt lacked precision, revealing panic rather than skill. Mongrel responded instantly, cutting through the movement before it could land. The weapon was knocked away, spinning uselessly through the air. Control of the fight slipped further from their hands. Each action only widened the gap between them. A final blow brought one of the men down, ending his resistance. The others watched in shock as the outcome became undeniable. Standing firm, Mongrel held the advantage without showing excess force. Mongrel stopped the fight and held his blade steady, signaling the end. His stance showed control rather than aggression, making it clear that further resistance would only worsen things. The remaining men quickly gave in, dropping their weapons and lowering themselves. Fear replaced their earlier defiance, and they chose surrender over continuing a losing battle. Behind Mongrel, his allies kept their aim fixed, prepared to act if needed. Their presence ensured that no sudden movement would go unchecked. The situation remained firmly under control. With no path left, the men fully yielded, raising their hands and abandoning any thought of fighting back. Their expressions showed exhaustion and regret as the pressure settled over them. Later, they were bound and secured, waiting under watch as the night deepened. The matter had been resolved without unnecessary loss, leaving only the consequences to follow. After the fight, Mongrel reflected on the outcome, noting how quickly the situation had been resolved. His companion observed him closely, recognizing that his restraint had prevented unnecessary harm. She considered the risks involved, understanding that even a small mistake could have led to serious injury. Mongrel acknowledged this silently, aware that the balance between control and danger had been narrow. A harsher outcome briefly came to mind, where the conflict could have ended with lethal force. In such cases, swift elimination would have been the safest option. That possibility lingered as a reminder of how fragile the situation had been. Looking back at the restrained men, Mongrel questioned whether they truly deserved such severity. Their actions had crossed a line, yet they were not beyond reason. This thought created a quiet pause in his judgment. His companion then showed a faint smile, recognizing his ability to hold back despite the circumstances. That restraint set him apart, proving that his strength did not rely solely on force. Mongrel stood quietly in the forest, reflecting on what strength truly meant. His thoughts drifted beyond simple combat, questioning whether power alone defined him. Nearby, his companion watched, understanding that his view was beginning to change. Around them, the group moved calmly, carrying supplies and returning to routine. The tension from earlier had faded, replaced by a quieter atmosphere. Mongrel's actions had left a clear impression on everyone present. A sense of balance settled in as the situation came to an end. The idea of overlooking small faults surfaced again, especially when dealing with those who were not beyond reason. That approach shaped how Mongrel chose to act moving forward. His companion stepped forward and acknowledged him, recognizing his judgment. Her expression showed respect rather than surprise, as if confirming something she had already believed. The moment eased into a lighter tone as they continued speaking. A subtle shift formed between them, suggesting trust had grown through the encounter. From there, their paths seemed more aligned than before. Mongrel stood facing his companion as she evaluated him with a firm expression. Her judgment was direct, pointing out a flaw in how he handled things. He accepted it quietly, showing no resistance to her assessment. A new idea was brought forward as she considered his place in a group. The suggestion carried weight, implying that his presence could fill a missing role. Mongrel reacted with mild surprise, not expecting such a direction. Another member appeared with energy, shifting the mood suddenly. The change caught Mongrel off guard, breaking his usual calm. For a brief moment his composure slipped as he struggled to process the unexpected turn. Mongrel stood within the guild, known as a capable yet unremarkable swordsman. His attitude appeared calm, though his skill hinted at something deeper. After leaving the city, he faced a Cyclops alone, holding his blade with steady control. The encounter showed a glimpse of strength he did not openly display. Sheena, who had become involved with him, began to question his true ability. Doubt lingered in her mind, not about his strength, but whether he could protect others when it truly mattered. She decided to observe him more carefully instead of relying on assumptions. Within the guild, rough and distrustful members formed the majority. Sheena chose to keep her distance from Mongrel, believing that getting too close might bring trouble. Meanwhile, others judged him harshly, unaware of the full extent of his actions. Over time, careful observation revealed fragments of his true nature. His movements in battle, his reactions, and his restraint began to form a clearer picture. Sheena slowly understood that his strength was real, yet deliberately concealed. At last, several men were captured and exposed as criminals. The situation confirmed the hidden tensions within the guild. Mongrel remained composed, having already grasped the truth behind the events. Mongrel stood before the captured men, examining them with a steady gaze. Time was still needed to uncover everything, yet the situation was already under control. His posture showed quiet confidence as he faced the restrained figures near the tree. From a distance, Sheena and her companion observed the scene closely. Doubts remained about Mongrel's intentions, especially regarding how he handled the situation. Suspicion lingered, though curiosity began to replace it. Raising a finger, Mongrel signaled that what needed confirmation had already been settled. His actions were deliberate, showing that he had reached a conclusion earlier. The captured men stayed silent as the tension slowly eased. A clearer impression formed as Mongrel stepped forward. He was neither reckless nor malicious, but someone who acted with control. Strength existed within him. Yet it was used carefully rather than displayed openly. Sheena finally relaxed after watching everything unfold. Trust replaced her earlier uncertainty as she accepted his presence. The outcome brought a sense of relief, and Mongrel remained unchanged, calm and composed as before. Sheena revealed a colder side, her expression calm yet threatening. Beneath the gentle appearance she showed readiness to act decisively if needed. The shift in her demeanor hinted at a strict sense of judgment. Soon after, the tension faded into a lighter mood. Companions around her reacted differently, some amused, while others remained indifferent. The moment showed that despite her seriousness, she could still return to normal with ease. Walking together, Sheena and her companion reflected on the situation. Concern mixed with relief as they considered Mongrel's actions. Although unusual, his behavior no longer seemed suspicious, but rather thoughtful in its own way. Nearby, Mongrel moved ahead quietly with a child following him. Others remained behind, watching the scene unfold. Gratitude appeared among the group, suggesting that the situation had been resolved without further conflict. In the end, the captured men reacted with fear and regret. The outcome was already decided, leaving no room for resistance. Mongrel stood calmly, holding his position as the truth of their actions came fully to light. One of the captured men shouted desperately, trying to justify his actions. Mongrel stood in front of him, unmoved, observing without reacting. His calm expression suggested that the outcome had already been decided. Kneeling down, Mongrel faced the man directly. The situation no longer required force, only acknowledgement of what had happened. His posture remained relaxed, as if the tension meant little to him. A sharp shift followed as Mongrel revealed a harsher side. His gaze turned intense, pressing the men into fear. Unable to endure the pressure, they quickly broke down, showing regret for their actions. From afar, Sheena and her companion watched with mixed reactions. The display raised questions about Mongrel's character, leaving uncertainty about whether his actions reflected cruelty or control. Night settled quietly over the area as the tension faded. Sheena returned to a composed state, focusing on practical matters instead. The earlier events left an impression, yet Mongrel remained consistent, neither overly harsh nor unnecessarily kind. Sheena stood near the cabin, reflecting on Mongrel with quiet curiosity. His actions earlier left a lingering impression. Rather than dismissing him, she began to see him as someone unusual, not easily understood. Observation led her to notice small details others ignored. Mongrel's behavior, including simple tasks, carried a sense of intention. The more she watched, the more she realized his actions were never careless. Attention shifted toward his weapon, which appeared ordinary at first glance. Among many blades, it lacked any remarkable presence. Still, something about it suggested hidden significance. Holding the sword revealed its true nature, despite its simple design. The blade showed no signs of damage or weakness. Its durability hinted at skill, not in appearance, but in how it was used. Sheena reached a quiet conclusion after examining everything. Mongrel's strength was not in display, but in precision and control. The realization deepened her understanding, confirming that his abilities were far beyond what most could see. Sheena examined the blade closely, her expression tightening as she sensed something unusual. The sword felt ordinary in appearance, yet its condition and balance suggested something far beyond a simple weapon. Careful thought followed as she analyzed what she had seen. Mongrel's strength could not be explained by tools alone. His movements, control, and precision pointed towards something deeper than basic skill. Attention shifted to the system behind the guild. Strict evaluation and recognition were required before granting status, especially within the capital. Only those with proven ability could rise through its ranks. A realization formed as Sheena connected the pieces. Individuals like Mongrel might possess a rare trait, something beyond normal training. This unseen factor explained the gap between his rank and his actual capability. The concept of a special power became clear in her mind. Such ability was not easily obtained and often marked those destined for greater roles. With this understanding, Sheena accepted Mongrel's nature, leaving his future path open to his own choice. The group gathered near the cabin, reflecting on what had happened. Sheena appeared thoughtful, weighing the situation carefully. Nearby, Mongrel remained relaxed, showing little concern about the outcome. A shift in focus followed, as Mongrel spoke about handling matters in his own way. His attitude stayed calm, suggesting confidence in dealing with future problems. The others listened while trying to understand his approach. Attention moved toward a pot of cooked food where an unusual method had been used. The preparation seemed inefficient, at first causing confusion among the group. Reactions varied, with some surprised by the choice. Discussion continued as Mongrel explained the reasoning behind his actions. What seemed wasteful carried a practical purpose, showing his tendency to think differently. The group began to see value in his unconventional methods. As night settled, the atmosphere softened. The group stood together, no longer divided by doubt. Sheena accepted the situation with a calm expression, while Mongrel remained unchanged, quietly fitting into the group's future path. The task concluded without further trouble, leaving the group in a calm state. The captured men were escorted away, their resistance gone. Around the cabin, the atmosphere felt lighter as the tension fully disappeared. Soon after, attention shifted to a small hunt in the forest. Sheena demonstrated precise skill, striking a bird cleanly. Mongrel watched quietly as the result showed her efficiency and control. The moment turned casual as Sheena approached Mongrel with a composed expression. She acknowledged his presence in a subtle way, while he reacted with quiet appreciation. Their interaction reflected a growing sense of mutual understanding. Discussion followed about handling prey and maintaining proper methods. Sheena emphasized clean and efficient practices, showing discipline in her approach. Her companion listened, adding to the calm exchange of ideas. Later, water magic was used for practical purposes. Mongrel observed its usefulness with clear interest, recognizing its value in daily life. The scene ended with a lighter tone, blending routine tasks with quiet reflection. The group gathered in a lighter mood discussing what to do next. A suggestion was raised about Mongrel joining more closely, though the idea was met with mixed reactions. Mongrel responded casually, showing little concern about the decision. Plans began to form as the conversation shifted toward future tasks. Different possibilities were considered, including simple activities and small missions. The discussion reflected a gradual return to normal life after recent events. Meanwhile, the captured men were handed over, their situation now settled. Attention moved away from them as the group prepared to continue forward. Mongrel stood apart, observing quietly as others wrapped things up. Night arrived, and the town grew calm. Mongrel wandered into a tavern, choosing to spend his time alone. The setting offered a brief escape from responsibilities, allowing him to relax. Seated with food and drink, Mongrel embraced the quiet moment. The day's events no longer weighed on him. With everything settled, he remained as he always was, calm, detached, and at ease. Inside the tavern, Mongrel spent his time drinking quietly. His relaxed attitude showed no urgency as he treated the moment as simple rest. The calm atmosphere suited him, allowing his thoughts to drift. Soon, a familiar companion approached his table. Her cheerful presence shifted the mood, bringing a more lively energy to the quiet setting. Mongrel acknowledged her without surprise, as if expecting the interruption. She quickly took charge of the situation, ordering food and speaking with ease. Her confidence contrasted with Mongrel's reserved nature. The interaction created a balanced rhythm between them. As they continued, subtle observations formed. Mongrel recognized her awareness of others, especially her concern for those around her. From a distance, another figure watched, beginning to see a different side of him. The moment settled into quiet understanding. Mongrel remained calm, while his companion stayed engaged beside him. Observers nearby started to realize that behind his detached nature, he carried a quiet sense of kindness. At the tavern table, Mongrel and his companion continued their quiet meal. Plans for the future were mentioned, including travel to the capital. The mood remained calm, with Mongrel listening while casually eating. His companion spoke with confidence, showing interest in what lay ahead. Her attitude carried optimism, suggesting that new opportunities would come. Mongrel reacted lightly, keeping his usual relaxed stance. Food arrived, and the focus shifted to the simple enjoyment of the moment. The dishes were modest, yet satisfying. Mongrel drank steadily while his companion appreciated the meal with visible delight. Thoughts turned toward other places and people they might encounter. The idea of new surroundings brought quiet curiosity. Even so, a sense of comfort remained tied to their current setting. The moment ended with a calm reflection on taste and preference. The meal, though ordinary, felt sufficient. Mongrel stayed composed, continuing to enjoy the quiet routine without seeking anything more. Seated together, Mongrel commented on the simplicity of the food. His tone remained casual, reflecting his preference for uncomplicated things. Across from him, his companion listened while quietly observing his habits. Curiosity grew as she leaned forward, trying to understand him better. His lack of interest in others' matters stood out, making him seem distant. Still, she continued watching, drawn by his unusual behavior. Mongrel responded in a calm manner, showing no intention of forcing conversation. He preferred to let others speak only when they wished. This approach revealed a quiet respect for personal boundaries. His thoughts drifted briefly, shaped by a different perspective on the world. Experiences from before influenced how he judged people, avoiding quick assumptions. As a result, his actions remained steady and unbiased. Hearing this, his companion softened, feeling at ease beside him. A small sense of warmth replaced her earlier curiosity. The moment settled into a quiet connection, simple yet genuine. Mongrel sat at the table, quietly drinking while his companion called his attention. He turned slightly, acknowledging her presence without much reaction. His expression remained steady, showing neither surprise nor resistance to her approach. The meal continued as Mongrel reached for more food, though the plate was nearly empty. His companion watched closely, noticing his habit of keeping things simple. The situation revealed his lack of concern for excess, focusing only on what was needed. Seeing this, she decided to take action and ordered additional food without hesitation. Mongrel observed her briefly, understanding her intention. The atmosphere stayed relaxed as the small decision added to their shared moment. Soon after, she encouraged him to eat together, creating a more natural connection between them. Mongrel accepted the situation calmly, while the tavern remained lively around them. The scene settled into quiet companionship as the evening continued. A specially modified fishing rod was presented, its structure carefully adjusted for durability and flexibility. The design reflected the skill of its maker, showing clear improvements over a standard tool. It stood as a reliable piece of equipment, prepared for repeated use. Mongrel carried the rod on his shoulder while walking along a quiet path. Behind him, his companion followed, observing his relaxed attitude. A brief thought passed about the one who crafted the rod, linking the tool to a familiar face. His expression remained calm, showing quiet trust in its quality. As they moved forward, the memory of the craftsman became clearer. The man was known for his discipline and steady work, someone who completed tasks properly without fail. Mongrel showed no concern, relying on that reputation without question, Their focus shifted toward the goal ahead. The companion considered the possibility that the timing was wrong and the target might no longer appear. Mongrel showed little reaction, continuing forward without hesitation. Despite the uncertainty, he chose to proceed anyway, accepting whatever result might come. Even if the original plan failed, another use for the rod remained. The outcome stayed unclear, yet Mongrel moved ahead with quiet confidence, unconcerned by the unknown. Mongrel and his companion arrived at the riverbank, facing the flowing water. He stood at the edge with the rod prepared, while the companion watched closely. The surroundings were calm, with only the sound of water moving steadily. He introduced a small lure, showing its simple shape and function. With a controlled motion, Mongrel cast the line outward. The lure landed across the surface, creating ripples as it sank slightly and began to move. After the cast, he observed the line and adjusted his handling. The companion remained unsure, unable to fully understand the method. Mongrel, however, stayed focused, treating the process as something natural. He began reeling the line in with an uneven rhythm. The lure moved through the water in a way that imitated a small creature. Each motion was deliberate, creating a pattern meant to attract attention beneath the surface. The method became clearer as he repeated the action. His companion started to follow the logic behind the movement. Mongrel maintained a steady pace, continuing the process without hesitation as they waited for a result. Mongrel allowed his companion to take the rod and try the method herself. She showed eagerness, gripping it firmly before casting the line into the river. The motion was rough, yet the lure still reached the water. As she handled the rod, a sudden pull traveled through the line. The unexpected tension caused confusion, but the movement beneath the surface was undeniable. Mongrel watched calmly while she struggled to understand what was happening. The catch revealed itself as a large crab, rising from the water instead of a fish. Its size and form surprised them both, making it clear that the target had changed. The situation differed from what they initially expected. Mongrel accepted the result, without concern, recognizing the crab as a usable catch. He reflected on the timing, realizing the earlier goal was no longer possible. Even so, the outcome still held value. Later, the focus shifted to food and shared experience. The idea of cooking and eating what they caught brought a new direction. What began as a simple attempt turned into something practical, ending with a quiet sense of satisfaction. Lena took the rod again, determined to try once more. Mongrel watched from behind as she focused, but the line suddenly grew heavy. The rod bent under the strain, signaling that something large had taken hold beneath the water. The sudden force startled her, and her grip tightened in panic. Mongrel quickly stepped in, guiding her hands and stabilizing the rod. The tension remained strong, forcing both of them to act carefully. She struggled to control the movement, her arms shaking under the pressure. Mongrel instructed her through steady actions, urging a slower and more controlled motion. Gradually, her movements began to align with the rhythm he showed. Mongrel observed the pull with a calm expression, recognizing the steady resistance. The weight did not behave like a living catch, lacking sudden bursts or movement. The situation became clearer as the line resisted without change, from a distance. The rod remained fixed in a strained position. Mongrel concluded that the hook had caught onto something immovable. The attempt ended not with a catch, but with the realization that they had pulled against the riverbed itself. Mongrel reacted quickly to the stuck line, drawing his bastard sword and striking with precision. The force cut through the tension, freeing the rod from what held it below. The sudden action resolved the situation without hesitation. Afterward, calm returned as they stood by the river. Lena showed signs of concern, while Mongrel remained composed. The earlier struggle seemed minor to him, as he treated it as part of the process. He examined the fishing line, recalling its origin and quality. The material was durable, yet even that could not prevent it from catching on the riverbed. His focus shifted to understanding the limitation rather than blaming the tool. A moment of reflection followed as Mongrel considered the situation. Doubt briefly crossed his mind about the effectiveness of his approach. Even so, he dismissed the idea of giving up, choosing instead to continue. Before long, Lena's rod showed movement again. The line tightened once more, signaling another catch. Mongrel immediately noticed, turning his attention back to the water as the attempt resumed. A large pot filled with crabs was revealed, showing the result of their effort. Mongrel and Lena looked down at the unexpected outcome. What began as a simple attempt had turned into a successful catch, even if it differed from the original goal. Mongrel accepted the situation without hesitation, deciding to end the activity there. Lena stood nearby, still processing everything that had happened. The riverbank grew quiet again as their focus shifted away from fishing. A sense of regret appeared on Lena's face as she reflected on her mistakes. Mongrel responded with a calm attitude, showing no concern over the outcome. He treated the experience as something natural rather than a failure. He encouraged her to move forward, recognizing her effort and responsibility. The moment became one of quiet reassurance, easing her doubts. Attention turned toward preparing the catch, giving their actions a practical conclusion. Later, the setting changed to a calm interior space. The crabs were placed in a pot, ready for cooking. The day ended with a simple result, where effort and adaptation led to a modest but satisfying outcome. Morning arrived as Mongrel prepared the crabs inside a quiet room. A child approached and greeted him, noticing the food he had gathered. Mongrel continued his work calmly, focused on handling the catch. He explained that the crabs had been cleaned over time and were now ready to be used. Holding the container, Mongrel decided to take them elsewhere. The child watched with curiosity, unsure of what would happen next. The child followed as Mongrel moved toward the exit. Confusion remained, but trust guided the steps forward. Mongrel kept a steady pace, carrying the prepared ingredients with purpose. They arrived at an outdoor cooking area surrounded by simple structures. Mongrel handed responsibility to the child, allowing him to take part in the process. The setting shifted from preparation to action. A basket of ingredients was presented, ready for use at the cooking space. The area stood quiet, prepared for the next step. What began as a fishing trip now continued as a shared task, moving toward a practical result. At the outdoor cooking area, Lena brought eggs as an offering tied to their earlier fishing. Mongrel accepted it casually, while another girl encouraged her to stop worrying. The mood lightened as the focus shifted fully toward cooking. More people gathered, drawn by the activity. Mongrel allowed them to join, showing no hesitation in sharing the moment. Lena stood among them, still unsure but slowly relaxing as the group formed around the task. Ingredients were arranged neatly around a large pot. Mongrel prepared everything with efficiency, organizing the process step by step. The others watched, noticing the variety of tools and his familiarity with them. Without delay, he added the crabs directly into the pot. The action surprised Lena, as the preparation seemed rough and immediate. Mongrel continued without pause, treating it as a normal step. He followed by crushing the contents firmly, using force to break them down. The intense method shocked those watching, making them question his approach. Despite this, Mongrel remained focused, continuing the process with complete confidence. Mongrel continued his unusual cooking method, working without hesitation. Lena watched closely, unable to understand the reasoning behind his actions. His approach seemed rough, yet he carried it out with steady confidence. As the mixture heated, the contents began to change color and thicken. Mongrel added more ingredients and continued grinding, treating the process as precise rather than careless. The others observed with growing uncertainty. He handed the task over, encouraging the others to try it themselves. Lena and the others followed his instructions, though their movements remained hesitant. The process continued under his guidance. The mixture gradually turned into a uniform paste. Shells, meat, and liquid blended together into a single mass. Mongrel remained focused, ensuring everything was fully combined. In the end, a thick, unrefined dish filled the pot. Its appearance unsettled those watching, leaving them unsure of the result. Mongrel stood calmly, satisfied with the outcome, despite their reaction. Mongrel continued the process by filtering the thick mixture, removing unwanted parts with steady hands. Lena and the others watched closely, still unsure of his intentions. He remained focused, showing that the process was not yet complete. The result became a smoother liquid, far more refined than before. Despite the improvement, doubt remained among the group. Mongrel told them to wait, indicating that the real result would come later. The pot was placed over heat, and the liquid began to simmer. Mongrel stood calmly as it cooked, allowing time to do its work. The others stayed nearby, watching the slow transformation. As the boiling continued, foam and residue rose to the surface. The appearance unsettled the group again, making them question the process once more. Mongrel, however, remained certain, ignoring their reactions. Finally, he added seasoning at the right moment. The simple action marked a turning point, suggesting the dish was nearing completion. The others watched with renewed attention as the process approached its final stage. As the pot continued to boil, the mixture slowly became clearer. The surface changed, forming a more refined texture. Lena and the others noticed the shift, realizing the process was finally producing a visible result. Mongrel introduced the next step, preparing another ingredient to be added. Lena struggled to follow his explanation, unable to fully grasp the method. Despite this, Mongrel proceeded without hesitation. He carefully added the ingredient while adjusting the heat. The process remained controlled, showing a deliberate balance rather than randomness. Each step followed a clear intention known only to him. Gradually, the dish began to resemble something more complete. The group leaned closer, observing the transformation with growing curiosity. Mongrel stayed calm, confident in the outcome. In the end, a clean and simple soup formed inside the pot. The earlier confusion gave way to recognition of the result. What started as an unusual process concluded as a proper dish, bringing quiet satisfaction to the group. Mongrel and the others finally tasted the dish. Each of them reacted carefully at first, unsure of what to expect. The moment carried quiet tension as they judged the result. Relief quickly replaced doubt as the flavor proved satisfying. Lena and the others showed clear enjoyment, their earlier concerns fading. Mongrel watched calmly. Seeing their reactions confirm his effort, he casually drank alongside the meal, treating the situation as ordinary. The others noticed but remained focused on the food. The atmosphere grew more relaxed as they continued eating. Mongrel reminded them to handle responsibilities properly. After the meal, his tone stayed steady, reinforcing a sense of order. The group settled into a calm rhythm, sharing the moment without tension. The final dish was presented clearly, simple yet complete. What began as an uncertain process ended with a satisfying result. The experience left them with both a meal and a quiet sense of accomplishment. Lena and the others continued eating with clear satisfaction. Their expressions showed relief and enjoyment after the long process. Mongrel observed quietly, letting them take in the result. They reflected on the meal, realizing how unexpectedly good it turned out. The earlier doubts about Mongrel's method began to fade. His ability, once questioned, now earned their recognition. The mood shifted to a lighter tone as they discussed future possibilities. Lena showed interest in trying similar activities again. Mongrel responded casually, leaving things open depending on the timing. Anna, their companion, expressed enthusiasm about joining next time. Mongrel reacted with mild surprise, not expecting such eagerness. The moment carried a relaxed and friendly energy. As the day came to an end, the task of cleaning remained. Lena handled it quietly, reflecting on everything that happened. The experience concluded with a calm sense of completion, marking the end of their shared activity. The day ended quietly near the lodging, with a calm reflection on the meal they shared. The simple experience left a warm impression. Suddenly, a child broke the calm, crying loudly after realizing something unfortunate had happened to the crab. Time passed, and the earlier event became a lesson. The child grew from the experience, gaining strength little by little. Mongrel observed this change with a composed expression, recognizing that even small moments could shape someone's growth. A massive circular city stood surrounded by thick walls, filled with dense buildings and narrow streets. Inside, the marketplace remained lively, as people moved between stalls and carts. Rumors spread quietly among the townsfolk about an unusual event from the previous day. Despite the normal atmosphere, a sense of curiosity lingered beneath everyday routines. Elsewhere, two men sat inside a wooden structure, while discussing strange movements seen at night. One of them appeared uneasy, recalling footprints left on snow, under the moonlight. Above them, a shadowy figure stood on a higher platform, suggesting someone had been watching from above, before slipping away unnoticed. A spiky-haired adventurer named Chuck spoke with irritation, questioning the reasoning behind recent actions. His expression showed disbelief as he considered the situation foolish. Known as a skilled swordsman within the guild, he carried himself with confidence, yet his frustration made his tone sharper than usual. Leaning forward, Chuck continued his thoughts, pointing out that someone's intentions were difficult to understand. In the background, others gathered at tables, listening or minding their own business. His focus remained firm as he tried to make sense of behavior that seemed careless and unproductive. After a pause, Chuck reflected more calmly on the matter. Nearby, a quieter young man listened, recognizing that the reasoning, though harsh, held some truth. The situation remained unresolved, leaving both men to consider what actions might follow. Next, inside the guild, a woman stood behind a counter, observing quietly as Chuck spoke with confidence. He appeared relaxed, mentioning a place he was willing to introduce. Despite his casual tone, the woman remained unconvinced, sensing little real benefit behind his suggestion. At another table, Mongrel sat with two companions while listening to their ongoing chatter. Their attention drifted toward rumors about others in the city, though Mongrel showed little interest. Nearby, Chuck suddenly reacted, noticing their presence and interrupting the calm atmosphere. The group shifted focus as Mongrel was directly addressed. A playful mood followed when one of the companions celebrated a small victory in a game. Meanwhile, Mongrel questioned their ability, observing their performance with quiet skepticism. A board game rested between them, its pieces arranged across a patterned surface. The game, known locally as Moonboard, seemed familiar yet different. Mongrel studied the layout, recognizing similarities to games from another world, though he lacked experience playing it. As the match continued, Mongrel reflected on the outcome of previous rounds. Repeated losses made the result clear, especially against a stronger opponent. Despite understanding the rules, he realized that knowledge alone was not enough to secure victory. Chuck's expression tightened as he watched from a distance, sweat forming on his face. Across the room, Mongrel and the others remained focused on their game, seemingly unaffected by his presence. The gap between their situations became more noticeable. Attention shifted toward Mongrel's table, where the match continued steadily. Observers noted that while Chuck struggled elsewhere, this table held a clear advantage. Mongrel maintained a calm posture, suggesting control despite earlier losses. As time passed, the group relaxed into conversation. The two girls beside Mongrel appeared composed and refined, their demeanor contrasting with the tension surrounding Chuck. Their presence added a sense of balance to the table. One of the girls reflected on Mongrel's situation, recognizing his quiet nature and independence. Although still young, he handled himself without relying heavily on others. From afar, his reserved behavior stood out among more expressive individuals. Meanwhile, Chuck reacted loudly, unable to hide his frustration. He compared his situation with Mongrel's, noticing the difference in attention and company. Despite his confidence as a guild member, the contrast left him visibly unsettled. Chuck spoke carelessly, showing little restraint in his behavior toward others. His attitude appeared overly confident, drawing attention from those nearby. The atmosphere around him shifted as his actions began to stand out in an uncomfortable way. A guild leader stepped forward, his presence immediately commanding respect. With a firm expression, he made it clear that such behavior was not acceptable. His authority silenced the surrounding noise, establishing a clear standard within the guild. Chuck reacted with mild resistance, though his tone softened slightly under pressure. Facing the leader, he seemed to recognize the difference in status and experience. Even so, traces of dissatisfaction remained in his posture. Nearby, Mongrel and his companion observed quietly, discussing the leader's strength and reputation from their perspective. The man held a level of ability that far exceeded ordinary adventurers. The contrast between him and others became increasingly apparent. Later, the leader moved outside, with composed confidence, accompanied by other capable individuals. His calm demeanor reflected years of experience handling difficult tasks. Though rarely expressive, his actions revealed a consistent role in guiding stronger adventurers through demanding missions. Mongrel remained seated at the table, watching the board while his companions continued their discussion. Their attention briefly shifted toward the guild leader in the distance. A quiet curiosity formed as they reconsidered his earlier actions. The guild leader stood with his back turned, speaking with steady authority. His words suggested that certain actions, though questionable, could still serve a purpose. Those nearby listened carefully, sensing a deeper meaning behind his stance. His expression hardened as he explained further, outlining how individuals might act unpredictably at times. Rather than dismiss such behavior outright, he implied that it should be understood and managed carefully. His tone carried experience rather than approval. Back at the table, Mongrel responded calmly, showing little concern. One companion seemed conflicted, while the other tried to interpret the leader's intentions. The group struggled to fully grasp the reasoning but acknowledged some truth within it. Elsewhere, Chuck spoke with others, reflecting on the situation more seriously. He considered how certain roles and expectations could not always be fulfilled in reality. The earlier incident remained unresolved, leaving lingering questions about how each person would act moving forward. Mongrel listened as the guild leader explained the situation more clearly. The earlier incident was described as a result of emotions getting out of control. His words suggested that the person involved may not have intended such actions from the start. The explanation continued with details of a man who spent his time moving between establishments, earning large amounts of money. His actions, while questionable, brought noticeable economic flow to the city. Wealth circulated as a result of his behavior, affecting more than just himself. Mongrel reflected on this perspective, showing a faint understanding despite his discomfort. Others nearby acknowledged the reasoning, though it remained difficult to fully accept. Respect for the guild leader grew, even if agreement did not follow. Back at the table, the group reacted with unease, sensing something unsettling in the explanation. Their expressions revealed confusion and mild discomfort as they tried to process the logic behind it. The mood shifted away from the earlier calm. Mongrel then focused on a different concern, considering the broader consequences. The demands placed on individuals, especially under the influence of wealth, seemed excessive. His expression tightened as he recognized the imbalance within the situation. One of Mongrel's companions spoke up, her tone carrying slight frustration. The guild leader stood nearby, close enough to hear everything clearly. The moment created tension as her words risked crossing a line. She quickly realized the situation and turned to apologize. The leader remained composed, listening without reacting harshly. His calm presence prevented the moment from escalating further. With a faint smile, the leader explained that defeating one's opponent did not mean accepting everything without thought. His reasoning emphasized balance, suggesting that strength should not replace judgment. Mongrel and the others listened, though discomfort still lingered. Back at the table, the group reacted differently. One companion appeared overwhelmed, while Chuck showed unease under the leader's influence. Mongrel stayed relaxed, treating the situation with less intensity than the others. The leader's true capability became clearer through recollection. His battle style involved adapting quickly, observing opponents, and responding with precise actions. Beneath his calm attitude, he carried the presence of a seasoned fighter who could handle even the most dangerous encounters. Lena showed clear discomfort as she reflected on recent events. The unfamiliar atmosphere unsettled her, especially around certain individuals. Meanwhile, the group remained unaware of her thoughts, leaving her to quietly accept that she would need time to adjust. Morning light falls over the guild building as Mongrel is called inside. A staff member informs him about a promotion exam for new adventurers. The mention of it catches him off guard, as he had not been paying attention to such events. A few months have passed since spring arrived. Around him, new recruits gather with improved posture and better equipment, showing clear signs of training and discipline. Their presence makes the change in the guild more noticeable. An official document is presented, recommending participation in the summer promotion exam. The purpose is to re-evaluate the abilities of newer members and determine their progress. He reflects on how newcomers often receive too many assignments, leaving little room for such evaluations. At the same time, the guild remains quiet due to a lack of work during the season. After considering the situation, Mongrel accepts the idea of taking the exam. With little work available and no urgent tasks, he decides to proceed as usual and treat it as a simple way to pass the time. The next stage of the promotion exam begins with a large number of participants. Mongrel is assigned a minor role, assisting as support rather than competing directly, which suits his usual approach. Inside the guild, some members suggest he could take a more active position, even serving as an examiner. Others show little motivation, appearing worn out and uninterested in the process. Mongrel dismisses the idea of taking things seriously. He considers himself average and avoids standing out, keeping his involvement minimal, despite his experience. A few guild members recall his past attempt at the promotion exam. They quietly question how he performed, noting that he rarely speaks about it and never seeks recognition. One of them reflects on his attitude, realizing that Mongrel never aimed for higher status. Even so, there was a sense that he had the ability to go further, though he chose not to pursue it. A group of Iron Rank adventurers gathers in the training area. Mongrel stands before them as the examiner, calmly taking control of the session while the participants watch with mixed curiosity and tension. From above, a few guild members observe the scene. Mongrel gives a brief warning, making it clear that careless behavior will not be tolerated during the test. He separates those who chose close combat roles and begins assessing them. Their abilities appear limited, relying mostly on physical strength rather than skill or magic. Preparation ends as Mongrel raises his shield and signals the start. He instructs them to attack directly, intending to judge their real combat capability through action. One participant charges forward with a sword, aiming to strike. Mongrel blocks the attack with ease, stopping the blow instantly and measuring the strength behind it as part of his evaluation. The first attacker is stopped instantly as Mongrel deflects the strike and counters with precise force. A calm expression remains on his face, showing that the exchange requires little effort. The participant loses balance and falls back under the pressure. Mongrel lowers his weapon, noting that a direct hit from his counter would have resulted in failure. Another candidate steps forward with a spear and launches a fast attack. Mongrel blocks it cleanly, maintaining position while observing the timing and control behind the movement. A heavier clash follows as a stronger opponent pushes forward. The impact echoes through the room, yet Mongrel's guard does not break, demonstrating solid defense against sustained force. The final exchange becomes more intense, as blades collide repeatedly. Mongrel studies the technique used against him, recognizing effort behind the strikes, while continuing to hold the advantage without losing control. A swift exchange unfolds as Mongrel deflects an incoming strike and counters with controlled force. The attacker is pushed back, unable to keep up with the speed of the movement. One by one, the participants are overwhelmed. Mongrel handles each attack with precision, knocking them down or stopping them without unnecessary effort while maintaining a steady pace. The group gradually falls into silence as the results become clear. Most of them struggle to continue, while Mongrel stands at the center, unaffected by the series of clashes. He reflects briefly on their performance, noting that some lack readiness for real combat. Improvement through training is necessary, as many are not suited for immediate advancement. With the evaluation nearly complete, Mongrel raises his weapon again and signals the next phase. Those who passed are given a chance to continue, while others are left behind to improve further. The remaining candidates gather again, showing renewed determination. Those who passed the first stage step forward, preparing themselves for the next challenge under Mongrel's supervision. A new test is introduced, centered around a heavy spiked weapon. The objective is explained as a practical evaluation designed to measure strength and adaptability. Attention shifts to the weapon as its weight and structure become clear. The participants realize it is not an ordinary tool, and even experienced fighters show concern. Mongrel presents the condition of the test, requiring precise control rather than brute force. The task demands accuracy, forcing them to demonstrate real combat skill. With a steady stance, he prepares to begin. The candidates watch closely, aware that success depends on meeting the requirement, while Mongrel remains composed and ready to judge their performance. Mongrel lifts the heavy spiked weapon and swings it downward with controlled strength. He avoids excessive force, demonstrating a balanced motion meant to show proper handling rather than raw power. The impact crushes the target instantly, sending fragments outward. Those watching react with tension, realizing the weight and danger behind the weapon despite the measured strike. Several candidates exchange glances before stepping forward. Determination replaces hesitation as they decide to attempt the challenge, encouraged by the clear example set before them. Mongrel observes their reactions and recognizes their willingness to face the task. The structure of the test reflects a system designed to prepare them for real combat conditions. With everyone gathered and ready, he lowers the weapon and signals the start of the next phase. The additional test begins, pushing the remaining candidates to prove their ability under pressure. The final phase begins as several candidates charge at once. Mongrel moves forward without hesitation, striking first and disrupting their formation before they can coordinate. Attacks come from multiple directions, yet each one is intercepted. He shifts positions smoothly, deflecting blows and countering with controlled strikes that force opponents back. As the clashes end, exhaustion spreads among the group. Several collapse or struggle to stand, while Mongrel remains steady and signals that the test has concluded. Some participants show frustration and determination, refusing to accept the gap in ability. They prepare themselves mentally, aiming to improve and face him again in the future. Mongrel watches them calmly, reminding them through his actions that defeat is part of growth. With the trial complete, he lowers his weapon and brings the examination to an end. After the exam, the candidates sit in exhaustion while Mongrel remains composed. Even after facing multiple opponents, he shows no sign of fatigue, highlighting the gap between them. Observers begin to realize his true level. What seemed like an ordinary bronze-ranked adventurer now appears far beyond that standard, drawing quiet attention from those nearby. Some discuss his background, noting that he has been active for a long time. His experience and consistent presence suggest a deeper skill that was never openly displayed. When asked about his strength, Mongrel gives a simple answer. His ability is not the result of talent alone, but steady and continuous training over time. He then offers guidance to the group, sharing practical advice. Emphasis is placed on preparation and endurance, showing them a clear path forward beyond the results of the exam. Mongrel reveals a pair of small items, presenting them with confidence. He identifies them as a rare technique, showing unexpected pride while maintaining a composed expression. The group reacts with confusion and surprise at the reveal. Despite their mixed reactions, Mongrel continues calmly, treating the moment as part of his usual routine, while leaving them uncertain about his true intentions. A rough-looking instructor formally assigns Roland to join his party. Strict guidance is promised from the beginning to prevent embarrassment. Roland bows deeply, showing respect as he accepts the role, and prepares to follow orders without hesitation. Soon after, the group gathers and attention shifts to their sudden advancement. The instructor hints that rapid promotion will reveal differences in ability among them. Roland listens while holding a small token as others quietly observe from behind. Sensing the weight of the situation, uncertainty spreads among the newly promoted members. Each of them struggles to understand what path to take next. Doubt appears on their faces, and hesitation replaces confidence as they question whether they truly deserve their new rank. From a distance, one man watches the group closely inside the guild. A faint smile forms as he studies their reactions. Meanwhile, tension rises among the others, who begin to worry about finding someone capable before winter arrives. The observer remains seated, calmly reflecting on the scene before him. He views the encounters and separations within the guild as part of a repeating pattern. Rather than interfering, he chooses to watch quietly, treating everything as something already familiar. A young girl points directly at Mongrel, demanding clarity about his actions. He remains seated and calm, glancing back with little urgency. Her frustration builds as she steps forward, unwilling to accept his silence. Nearby, a pan bubbles steadily over a small flame, placed carefully inside the guild's fireplace. Mongrel presents it as something he prepared himself, treating the unusual setup as completely normal. Suspicion deepens as the girl studies him with sharp focus. Mongrel maintains a steady expression while another member quietly allows his actions, giving him space to continue without interruption. He rises and carries the pan with practiced ease, explaining the mixture through his composed demeanor. The preparation appears deliberate, suggesting familiarity rather than carelessness as others observe from a distance. Just as Mongrel moves to gather more materials, the girl quickly grabs his arm to stop him. Concern replaces her earlier anger, yet his posture shows clear intent to continue despite her resistance. Mongrel steps outside into the cold, crouching near the ground as he gathers fresh snow. The quiet surroundings contrast with his casual focus, as he shapes it carefully with his hands. Back inside, he presents a bowl filled with packed snow. The others watch in confusion as he sets it down, treating it as an important part of his preparation, rather than something ordinary. He slowly pours melted honey over the surface, letting it spread evenly across the snow. The texture begins to change as the golden liquid settles, forming thin lines across the white base. A stick is placed at the edge and the honey-coated snow is carefully wrapped around it through steady motion. The mixture thickens and forms into a solid shape, becoming something more structured. Mongrel lifts the finished creation with quiet satisfaction. The result appears simple yet refined, showing his unusual method. The girl watches closely, surprised by how something so basic turns into a complete treat. Mongrel presents the finished treat to the girl, explaining its simple nature through his calm posture. She hesitates at first, unsure whether to accept something made in such an unusual way. Excitement suddenly replaces her doubt as she takes the stick from him. Holding it carefully, she prepares herself and leans in, ready to try the unfamiliar creation. A small bite changes her reaction instantly. Her expression softens, and satisfaction spreads across her face as she realizes the taste is far better than expected. Nearby, others notice the moment and observe with quiet curiosity. Mongrel casually eats his own portion, treating the result as something ordinary. While the group begins to understand his intention, the instructor approaches and reflects on Mongrel's unexpected idea. Mongrel responds with a relaxed attitude, offering another piece as a simple gesture, showing that even small creations can leave a strong impression. The instructor takes a bite of the treat and slowly reacts. His expression tightens as the sweetness overwhelms him, revealing that the flavor is stronger than expected. Meanwhile, the girl becomes eager to try making it herself. Under Mongrel's guidance, she carefully handles the mixture, focusing on shaping it properly, while others watch her attempt. A strict woman suddenly approaches, noticing the activity around the fireplace. Her presence shifts the atmosphere as she questions what everyone is doing, drawing attention to the unusual situation. Mongrel calmly offers the prepared treat without hesitation. The girl beside him appears slightly uneasy, unsure how the woman will respond. After seeing everything after examining it, the woman accepts the result. Her expression softens as she acknowledges the outcome, signaling quiet approval while holding several finished pieces in her hand. The guild becomes lively as members gather and enjoy Mongrel's simple creation. The atmosphere grows warmer, and even newcomers begin to feel included, as they watch others react positively. Mongrel calmly observes and makes a small adjustment to improve the taste. The girl listens closely, beginning to understand the balance behind his method, while trying to follow his reasoning. As they sit together, the moment turns casual and relaxed. The girl's sharp reaction shows surprise at how effective the idea is, while others nearby continue eating and watching with interest. Conversation shifts among the group, moving from the treat to their experiences. A man speaks seriously about challenges they face, hinting at the dangers that still lie ahead despite the calm setting. The focus changes toward future tasks as the group gathers around the table. Thoughts turn to hunting and preparation, with Mongrel quietly present as the discussion moves from simple enjoyment to the reality of their work. The discussion shifts toward combat, as members begin talking about insect-type monsters. One explains that striking vital points would be most effective, though finding those weak spots is not always simple. The girl listens while imagining the creature, noting that many of its parts appear tough. Her uncertainty shows as she considers how difficult it would be to face such an opponent directly. Others add their experience, describing how even strong defenses can fail against large creatures. The conversation grows more serious as they reflect on the risks waiting outside the safety of the guild. Attention turns to strategy, with one suggesting that certain weapons or skills could ignore armor entirely. The group begins to understand that strength alone is not enough without the right approach. A composed woman steps forward and offers a clear solution. She proposes involving a specialist who can handle such threats, guiding the group toward a more practical and organized plan. The discussion continues as members argue about proper equipment. One insists that swordsmen should always carry shields, while others question the practicality of such heavy gear. Around the table, the group considers different fighting styles. Some point out that not everyone can rely on the same approach, especially when facing unknown threats in dangerous areas. The instructor shifts the focus toward Roland, suggesting that blindly copying others will only lead to failure. His tone becomes firm as he emphasizes the need for individual judgment. Mongrel responds with a calm explanation, stating that he does carry basic protection despite appearances. His relaxed attitude contrasts with the seriousness of the conversation. The group reacts with confusion and disbelief, questioning his claim. As tension rises, Mongrel remains composed, leaving others uncertain whether to doubt him or reconsider their assumptions. Laughter spreads through the group as Mongrel's claim about carrying a shield is questioned. Some assume he is joking, while others press him to explain what he really means. Without hesitation, Mongrel stands and declares that he will prove it. His sudden confidence shifts the mood, and the group watches closely as he prepares to act. He rushes out quickly, leaving behind confusion and curiosity. His bold promise echoes in the room as others begin to wonder what he intends to show. Mongrel returns wrapped in a large bundle, visibly affected by the cold. The unusual sight causes surprise, as no one expected such an approach. With a serious expression, he insists that his method reflects a practical choice. While others question his reasoning, he remains firm, presenting his idea as something worth understanding rather than dismissing. Mongrel finally reveals his hidden equipment, presenting a large round shield attached to his arm. The group stares in surprise as his confident expression shows pride in his unusual choice. He explains the name and purpose of the shield, treating it as something more than simple defense. The girl beside him looks confused, trying to understand what makes it special. Mongrel demonstrates its features, showing that the shield can be used offensively as well. Its structure allows both protection and attack, making it a flexible tool in battle. As he activates it, the center begins to glow brightly. The sudden light catches everyone off guard, and Mongrel pauses, noticing something unexpected in its reaction. The group realizes the shield can reflect light directly toward an opponent. While the idea seems effective, their expressions show uncertainty about how practical such a method truly is in real combat. Mongrel presents his idea with confidence, suggesting the shield could serve as a light source in dark conditions. The others listen, but their reactions remain uncertain as they consider the practicality of such a use. Doubt spreads across the group as they begin pointing out flaws. Concerns arise about weight, handling, and the difficulty of using the shield effectively in complex environments, like forests. Criticism grows stronger, and several members openly reject the idea. Mongrel's expression shifts as he absorbs their reactions, realizing that his approach is not being taken seriously. Despite the rejection, Mongrel reflects on his concept and quietly stands by his reasoning. While others dismiss it, he maintains that combining functions into a single tool could still hold value in the right situation. A massive insect-like creature stood over a remote fortress near a lake at the borderlands. Its sharp limbs and towering body marked it as a dangerous presence. The surrounding land appeared quiet, yet the scale of the creature suggested a threat beyond ordinary understanding. Elsewhere, a reptilian being rested on a structure, observing the world with calm awareness. Creatures of many kinds existed in this land, each carrying unknown abilities. Some resembled dragons, while others took forms similar to golems. Such diversity made the world unpredictable and filled with hidden dangers. Inside a town, two men reacted to the cold as one entered a building. Their movements were casual, yet their expressions hinted at unease. The ordinary setting contrasted with the harsh environment outside, where survival required constant attention. At the counter, a woman in armor stood with quiet authority. Her presence drew attention, not through force, but through composure. The atmosphere shifted as others recognized her significance within the town. Kizoku faced forward with firm posture, revealing her noble status. Nearby, a young man watched her carefully while continuing his meal. His cautious gaze suggested awareness, as if he understood more than he chose to reveal. Kizoku introduced herself at the guild counter with a steady expression. Her presence carried quiet authority as she confirmed her identity and intention to register. The receptionist listened attentively, recognizing her status and the seriousness behind her request. She formally requested registration while maintaining composure. In the background, Mongrel sat quietly, observing without drawing attention. His relaxed posture contrasted with the structured exchange happening at the counter. The process continued as Kizoku stood calmly, her noble background subtly influencing the interaction. The receptionist handled the situation carefully, aware that this was not a typical applicant. Everything proceeded in an orderly manner. A brief disturbance came from Mongrel's table as he shifted abruptly. The sound echoed slightly, drawing momentary attention. Kizoku remained focused, unaffected by the interruption, keeping her attention forward. Lena asked about Kizoku while glancing toward her. Mongrel responded with quiet certainty, noting that she occasionally appeared in the wild. His expression suggested caution, as if recognizing her strength and the potential danger she carried. Mongrel sat across from Lena, focusing on a board game laid out between them. Lena questioned his behavior, suggesting he should involve himself more in guild matters. Mongrel remained uninterested, preferring to keep distance from anything troublesome around the guild. Others continued their usual routines, drinking and talking without concern. Some noticed Kizoku's presence, yet most chose not to interfere. The atmosphere stayed casual despite her status, as if such encounters were not uncommon. At the counter, Kizoku completed her registration without hesitation. Meanwhile, Mongrel quietly reacted, recognizing her as someone dangerous. His subtle unease contrasted with his otherwise relaxed demeanor. Kizoku expressed her intention to take on a request immediately. Her decision carried urgency, showing no interest in waiting. Mongrel, observing from afar, questioned the timing, sensing something unusual. Myrene explained that urgent requests were currently unavailable. Kizoku listened, but did not appear discouraged. Her focus remained firm, suggesting she would act regardless of circumstances. Myrene explained that a task in the Baroa forest was too dangerous and not suitable to assign. Kizoku listened without hesitation, showing no concern for the difficulty. The lack of reward did not change her interest, despite the refusal. Kizoku accepted the situation calmly and chose to proceed later. She turned away from the counter and moved toward the exit, her steps steady, and without doubt. After she left, the guild returned to its usual rhythm. Myrene appeared slightly relieved, while nearby adventurers continued their routines. The tension she brought slowly faded from the room. Some adventurers discussed her presence, recalling similar encounters in the past. Their tone suggested unease, as if her actions often disrupted normal order. The group recognized that dealing with nobles rarely ended simply. Back at the table, Lena reflected on the strange atmosphere. Mongrel responded with mild irritation, advising against unnecessary involvement. From his perspective, keeping distance remained the safest choice. Mongrel sat across from Lena, growing slightly irritated as the game continued. Lena pressed him to play seriously, while Mongrel showed little interest. His attitude suggested he no longer cared about the outcome. Lena studied the board carefully, reflecting on past matches. He believed Mongrel had the ability to win but chose not to. The pattern on the board revealed a situation where victory was still possible. Mongrel reminded him that nobles carried a different weight. He advised the boy not to forget the sense of pressure they bring. Around them, the guild remained active, yet his words carried a quiet warning. Lena claimed victory and demanded acknowledgement. Mongrel responded with mild annoyance, accepting the result without much reaction. Snow began to fall outside, marking the passage of time into the next day. The following day, Kizoku was recognized clearly as a noble. Her equipment, bearing, and presence made it obvious. Her strength, skill, and refined manner set her apart, confirming she was far beyond ordinary adventurers. A well-dressed man spoke with confidence, discussing a noble family and their daughter. His tone carried arrogance, as if he viewed others as beneath him. The situation hinted at control and manipulation behind his calm demeanor. Suddenly, his expression turned violent. With overwhelming force, he lashed out, showing no hesitation in harming others. The scene revealed a ruthless nature, where status justified cruelty and silence was enforced through fear. Elsewhere, Mongrel moved through the building, reflecting on such individuals. He considered them troublesome, recognizing that involvement with nobles often led to danger. Avoiding them remained his preferred choice. He entered the tavern, only to notice the atmosphere had changed. Conversation slowed as several people turned their attention toward him. The shift suggested something unusual had already taken place. As he stepped further inside, familiar faces called out to him. Their reactions were mixed, carrying both curiosity and tension. Mongrel's uneasy expression showed he understood this was not an ordinary moment. Several men questioned Mongrel about the previous day, bringing up rumors involving a noble girl. Their tone carried curiosity mixed with suspicion, as if expecting him to be involved. Mongrel showed little interest in explaining himself. The group laughed and continued pressing him, suggesting he should not ignore the situation. Their attention lingered on him, making it difficult to remain unnoticed. Mongrel endured the pressure without reacting strongly. A sharp voice interrupted as a young woman stepped forward, warning others to keep their distance. She stood confidently, placing herself between Mongrel and the group. Her presence shifted the balance, forcing the others to hesitate. Mongrel responded with a casual smile, suggesting they move elsewhere, instead of escalating the situation. The tension eased slightly, though the surrounding group remained watchful. His calm approach redirected the moment. As they left the tavern together, Mongrel reflected on the influence nobles held. The situation showed how easily attention gathered around them. Despite everything, he chose to move forward quietly, avoiding deeper involvement. Mongrel entered a hunter's tavern with the young woman, observing the busy interior. She explained that this place was often used when returning from the forest. Mongrel listened while considering the idea of joining such outings in the future. They sat together as the discussion shifted toward Artemis. The young woman spoke casually, hinting that Artemis might still be connected to the guild. Mongrel began to suspect there was more behind her situation. She suggested that if any work appeared, Artemis would likely take it. Her tone carried confidence, as if she understood Artemis well. In the background, another figure silently approached, closing the distance without being noticed. Mongrel considered the situation carefully, thinking that Artemis posed little immediate risk. From his perspective, dealing with nobles had become familiar, reducing his concern. His calm reasoning contrasted with the hidden tension building nearby. From above, the scene showed multiple figures observing or moving through the tavern. The young woman clarified that her actions were intentional, not careless. The moment hinted that events were being guided quietly behind the scenes. The young woman spoke cautiously about nobles, suggesting it was better not to get involved. Mongrel listened with a tired expression, showing little interest in the topic. Her curiosity about his thoughts contrasted with his reluctance to engage. She leaned closer, pointing out his hair and linking it to a mixed heritage. Mongrel responded casually, offering a vague explanation. Her attention sharpened as she began connecting details about different regions and bloodlines. The conversation continued as she questioned him further. Mongrel brushed it off, avoiding deeper explanation. His relaxed attitude hid any intention of revealing the truth. A memory surfaced as he described his origin as a small village near the border. The setting appeared simple and distant, lacking any remarkable features. The story sounded ordinary, yet carried subtle weight. He added that the village had been affected by war, reducing its population. The explanation remained brief, leaving many details unclear. Despite the calm tone, the past hinted at loss and hardship. Mongrel recalled a violent moment from the past, where soldiers clashed and the battlefield descended into chaos. Flames rose as forces closed in, leaving no escape. He remembered thinking that survival in that moment was uncertain. The memory continued with a powerful enemy standing before him, representing a threat far beyond normal encounters. Mongrel reflected that, without certain abilities, he would not have survived. The experience remained one of the most dangerous moments of his life. Back in the present, the young woman reacted with concern after hearing his story. Her expression showed regret, realizing she had spoken too lightly about something serious. The weight of his past became clear to her. Mongrel dismissed it as something long ago, downplaying the importance of the event. He spoke casually, as if the danger had little effect on him now. His attitude created a contrast between the severity of the memory and his calm response. He shifted the conversation, suggesting they move on and focus on something simple. The mood lightened as he encouraged her not to worry. Despite everything, he chose to leave the past behind and continue forward. Mongrel walked through the snowy village, recalling a past where survival demanded learning unfamiliar language. As a child, he struggled alone, forced to adapt. Those quiet days shaped him, leaving memories he rarely shared with anyone. Ulrika stood in silence, her hand pressed to her head as the weight of Mongrel's past settled in her mind. The truth felt heavier than expected, leaving a trace of regret in her expression. Thoughts of how she had treated him before lingered, creating a quiet sense of guilt. Without hesitation, she turned away, choosing to act rather than remain in doubt. Through the busy street, she moved quickly. Her steps uneven as urgency took over. People passed by, unaware of her concern. Each stride carried her closer to a decision, until the Artemis clan house appeared ahead, marking the place she needed to reach. Inside the building, Ulrika returned and removed her cloak. The calm interior contrasted with her restless state. Sheena stood nearby, composed and observant, her presence steady, as she watched Ulrika's arrival. With firm resolve, Ulrika brought forward the matter she had been carrying. Attention shifted as the topic surfaced, focusing on recent events connected to Sheena. The atmosphere grew serious, signaling that the situation required careful understanding. Elsewhere, Bridget Lasamsaria reflected on the investigation already completed. The findings had revealed her identity and intentions clearly. With the truth exposed, the situation moved toward its outcome, leaving little room for uncertainty. Ulrika listened closely as the truth about Sheena became clearer. The identity she had used was not real, suggesting a hidden purpose behind her actions. Concern grew as the situation pointed to deeper involvement than expected. Attention shifted to Sheena's abilities, revealing her strength as a knight. Her skill stood out, surpassing many, even among experienced fighters. Despite this, her background remained unclear, leaving important details unresolved. Ulrika processed the information while observing Sheena in silence. The possibility that Sheena could have lived openly as a knight raised questions about her choices. Doubt formed as recent suspicions from others began to align with the current findings. Sheena maintained a firm stance, reflecting on her role and purpose. Her life centered on using her sword to survive, not for pride or recognition. The path she followed showed determination, shaped by necessity rather than status. A tense expression appeared as Sheena considered her limits. Even with her strength, she recognized that the outside world held greater challenges. The realization remained quiet, but it carried weight as the situation continued to unfold. A stern man addressed Sheena, with a controlled but heavy tone, reminding her of the role expected from a knight. The distinction between fighting people and facing monsters was emphasized, placing pressure on her position and responsibility. Sheena reacted sharply, her expression filled with frustration as she rejected the idea without hesitation. Tension rose as her stance showed resistance against what was being implied. Around them, others observed the situation with mixed reactions. Ulrika tried to lighten the mood slightly, yet concern remained visible. Another member appeared uneasy, sensing that the issue was becoming serious. The group gathered more formally as the discussion continued. Attention shifted to the guild, where a request had already been made by a noble house. The situation now extended beyond personal matters into official business. The man concluded with a firm decision regarding Sheena's next role. She would be assigned to accompany a noble mission, placing her under greater expectations. The outcome carried a sense of pressure, signaling that her future would now be tested under stricter conditions. Ulrika showed clear frustration as the discussion continued, her thoughts conflicted by the situation. Another member remained calm, pointing out that the task still needed to be handled regardless of personal feelings. The gap between duty and emotion became more visible. Attention shifted back to the request from the noble house. Sheena sat quietly while the details were considered, including the lack of strict conditions for companions. The situation appeared unusual, raising questions about the true intention behind it. A deeper motive became clearer as the noble house's interest focused on Sheena herself. Her abilities and potential were already recognized, suggesting that this mission could shape her future. The opportunity carried both promise and risk. With the decision forming, the group moved toward accepting the request. Ulrika listened as the plan settled. Realizing that participation was now expected, the matter shifted from discussion to preparation. The schedule was determined without delay, setting the task to begin soon. A search in the forest would serve as the starting point, with Sheena as the focus. The mission now stood confirmed, marking the next step in her path. Ulrika reacted to the sudden decision, noting how quickly everything was moving. Despite the pace, she remained ready to proceed. Another member confirmed their condition, showing no hesitation about joining the task. Sheena sat in thought, considering the location mentioned. The forest carried weight in her mind, though she did not fully explain why. Sheena observed quietly, aware that not all reasons had been revealed. Leaning back, Sheena reflected on recent events and her connection to Mongrel. Her interest seemed deliberate, shaped by prior encounters. The choice to involve him suggested a calculated intention rather than coincidence. The group gathered again as Ulrika mentioned Mongrel's current whereabouts. Reactions varied, with some showing surprise at the casual situation described. The contrast between the mission and his behavior created an odd tension. Sheena accepted the information calmly, shifting focus toward practical matters. Timing and coordination became the priority as the plan moved forward. With preparations aligning, the mission began to take a clearer form. Ulrika raised a concern about meeting Mongrel the next day, recalling what she had heard about his usual whereabouts. The idea seemed uncertain, yet it opened a possible way to involve him in the mission. Sheena considered the suggestion carefully, her expression calm but focused. A plan formed as she decided that persuading Mongrel directly would be the most effective approach. The decision reflected her intent to take control of the situation. The group reacted as the plan developed further. Ulrika agreed to accompany Sheena, believing the task would be manageable. Attention shifted toward whether Mongrel would respond positively, leaving a small doubt within the group. Sheena evaluated the situation with a steady gaze, concluding that the mission's short duration and reward should be enough to convince him. Even if he refused at first, she believed he could still be persuaded. Elsewhere, Mongrel reacted strongly, rejecting the idea outright with visible frustration. His resistance stood in sharp contrast to their expectations. Meanwhile, Ulrika and Sheena remained composed, already anticipating such a response as the plan moved forward. Mongrel stood across from Ulrika and Sheena, his expression guarded, as he listened. The setting remained calm, yet his reaction showed clear reluctance. Suspicion formed quickly. As he sensed that the request carried hidden complications, Ulrika stepped forward, trying to present the situation in a reasonable way. She acknowledged the difficulty while showing some understanding toward Sheena. Despite her effort, uncertainty remained, especially regarding Mongrel's willingness to get involved. Sheena took a more direct approach, explaining the nature of the task and its reward. The offer was simple but carried weight, suggesting a short mission with clear benefits. Even so, the conditions hinted that deeper intentions might exist. Mongrel considered the proposal carefully. His thoughts focused on the risks rather than the reward. He questioned what might be hidden behind the request, weighing whether accepting it would bring unnecessary trouble. A firm conclusion settled in his mind as doubt overcame any interest. The task appeared more dangerous than it seemed, and he recognized that involvement could lead to unwanted consequences. His decision leaned toward refusal as the situation remained tense. Mongrel spoke with a relaxed attitude, dismissing the offer as unnecessary. His posture remained casual, showing no real interest in the mission. Ulrika and Sheena watched him, aware that convincing him would not be simple. Sheena presented the details more clearly, including the reward and conditions. She held out the information calmly, expecting a logical response. The situation now depended on whether Mongrel would take it seriously. Mongrel examined the offer, his expression shifting as he processed it. Initial indifference gave way to surprise, suggesting that something about the terms caught his attention. His thoughts began to change. Sheena studied him closely, noticing the shift in his reaction. His hesitation revealed uncertainty, rather than outright refusal. The tension between caution and interest became more visible. The group observed as Mongrel struggled to decide, his unease apparent. Ulrika remained attentive, recognizing his tendency to avoid trouble. Despite his reluctance, the possibility of involvement no longer seemed impossible. Sheena spoke firmly about the noble house, explaining how fear had shaped their actions. The request now seemed less about simple work and more about control. Mongrel listened quietly, still unconvinced by the reasoning. His attention drifted in an unexpected direction, breaking the seriousness of the moment. Ulrika reacted immediately, clearly aware of his behavior. The tension shifted briefly into an awkward atmosphere. Sheena remained composed, addressing the situation without losing focus. She redirected the discussion back to the task, emphasizing the purpose behind the request. The group returned to the main issue despite the interruption. Ulrika acted quickly, trying to snap Mongrel out of his distraction. Her reaction showed frustration, while he remained partly unfocused. The moment revealed how difficult it was to keep him engaged. Sheena clarified the true intention of the noble house, stating that the goal was to control their daughter's actions. The mission no longer appeared simple, as it carried personal implications. With that understanding, the situation grew more serious for everyone involved. Sheena stated clearly that the goal was to ensure Bridget would withdraw, without unnecessary conflict. Her approach showed confidence, suggesting that force would only be used if required. The responsibility for handling the situation remained with their group. Mongrel responded with doubt, questioning why he was needed when others could take the role. His tone reflected reluctance, as he preferred to stay uninvolved. Ulrika stayed nearby, watching his reaction closely. Another member explained the need for stronger support, emphasizing that the situation could escalate. The mission required preparation, even if it appeared simple at first. The possibility of resistance made the task more serious. Details about the forest were revealed, showing that the environment itself posed a risk. Although monsters were few, their nature could become dangerous without warning. Mongrel listened, weighing these factors carefully. Sheena observed him with a focused expression, sensing hesitation behind his reasoning. She questioned whether his judgment truly matched the situation. The moment ended with her quiet determination, as the decision still hung unresolved. Sheena calmly proposed a way to avoid unnecessary attention, suggesting Mongrel could hide his identity while joining the mission. She offered to handle the financial side, making the arrangement more appealing. Mongrel listened, still cautious, as the idea began to shift the situation. Ulrika and the others reacted, pointing out that Mongrel's presence would strengthen their chances. His skill was already recognized, making him a valuable addition. Despite this, hesitation remained clear on his face. The group emphasized his ability, noting that even within the guild his strength stood out, attention centered on him, increasing the pressure to accept. Mongrel stayed silent, weighing the expectations placed on him. Sheena continued, framing the task as something manageable and short. She encouraged him to help, presenting it as a simple decision. Her steady tone showed confidence that he could handle it. Mongrel finally reflected on the offer, considering both the reward and the situation. The balance between risk and benefit began to change in his mind. Though reluctant, he started to see a reason to accept. Mongrel tried to calm himself, focusing on weighing the risks and benefits. He reminded himself of how he had managed situations before. Sheena observed quietly, waiting for his decision while offering a final incentive tied to the mission. Sheena added another condition, mentioning a small comfort prepared for him after the task. Her tone remained steady, but the offer introduced something unexpected. Mongrel's expression changed instantly, showing clear surprise. Confusion spread through the group as Mongrel reacted strongly to the new detail. Ulrika noticed the sudden shift, realizing his attitude had changed. The atmosphere became lighter for a moment as his interest grew obvious. Mongrel focused intensely on the offer, questioning the details with unusual seriousness. Sheena clarified it calmly, keeping her composure. His reaction showed that the small reward had far more impact than expected. Without further hesitation, Mongrel bowed deeply and accepted the request. His earlier resistance disappeared completely, replaced by firm commitment. The group watched as the decision was finally made, marking the start of their mission together. Mongrel leaned closer, still thinking about the reward rather than the mission itself. The promise of a bath occupied his mind, making him accept the situation more easily. Ulrika watched him, slightly concerned about how quickly his focus had shifted. His thoughts drifted further as he imagined the comfort awaiting him after the task. The contrast between harsh conditions and a proper bath made the reward feel more valuable. Despite the simple offer, it had fully captured his attention. Sheena acknowledged his decision and accepted his cooperation. The arrangement became official as she placed full trust in him for the mission. Mongrel appeared satisfied, his earlier hesitation no longer visible. As the group prepared to move forward, Ulrika reflected on his behavior with some confusion. The mission had been secured, yet the reason behind his agreement remained unusual. With plans set, they looked ahead to the task waiting the next day. Morning arrives at the Artemis clan house as Mongrel prepares for a new task. His expression shows excitement, yet his goal remains simple. Instead of seeking glory, he focuses on experiencing the surroundings and maintaining his usual routine. Inside the residence, a woman watches him with slight concern. His early enthusiasm feels unusual, especially given the quiet hours. Meanwhile, Mongrel reflects on daily habits, paying attention to small comforts rather than the mission itself. The discussion shifts toward bathing, revealing his strong preference for cleanliness. He considers it an essential part of life, not a luxury. The woman listens, realizing his priorities differ from typical adventurers. Mongrel explains his current lifestyle, centered on simple routines. Using limited resources, he recreates warm baths with basic tools. Even in a different world, he adapts methods to maintain a sense of comfort and order. Later, he demonstrates his approach by heating water and using worn containers. Others observe with mixed reactions, unsure of his methods. Despite their doubt, Mongrel continues calmly, treating cleanliness as a natural and necessary part of his everyday life. Mongrel reflects on the difficulty of creating a proper bath alone in this world. He considers how unusual it is that magic exists, yet practical uses, like heating water, remain inconvenient. Despite this, he continues exploring simple methods to recreate a clean bathing environment. Walking through the corridor, he appears unchanged, wearing his usual gear beside him. The woman observes quietly, while thinking about his odd priorities. His concern over metal equipment reveals discomfort with cold materials rather than concern for appearance. The coldness of metal armor becomes more apparent as he compares it to everyday experiences. Others see such equipment as valuable, yet Mongrel focuses on how it feels against the body. His perspective separates practicality from common expectations. The conversation shifts toward nobles, where full armor is considered standard. However, Mongrel shows little interest in such customs. The woman begins to question whether his behavior is strange or simply different from others. Standing at the doorway, she considers his actions more carefully. His habits might seem unusual, yet they remain consistent with his personal logic. In the end, she accepts that his approach, though uncommon, brings him a sense of ease and purpose. Inside a formal room, members of the Artemis group gather and discuss their next mission. The atmosphere remains calm, yet the topic carries a sense of risk. Mongrel stands among them, quietly observing the situation without showing strong concern. Plans begin to take shape as roles are assigned for the upcoming task. The group prepares to move out after coordinating with others. Attention shifts toward organization, ensuring each member understands their position. A clear formation is outlined, placing different members at the front and center. Responsibility for the rear is given to Mongrel, reflecting trust in his ability. The arrangement emphasizes balance between offense and support. Some members question Mongrel's role, noticing his unusual equipment. His shield appears uncommon compared to typical gear. Despite this, he remains composed, showing no need to justify his choices. Curiosity grows around the strange shield as others examine it more closely. Mongrel handles it with ease, treating it as an ordinary tool. While opinions differ, he continues without hesitation, focused only on fulfilling his role in the mission. The group gathers once more as final preparations begin. Formation details are confirmed, and attention turns toward meeting their contact. Mongrel stands among them, maintaining a calm presence while others focus on coordination. Soon after, a cheerful member steps forward and reassures the group about the task. Confidence spreads as the mission is described as brief and manageable. The team prepares to depart, carrying a sense of light determination. A new figure appears with a commanding presence, immediately establishing authority. Her introduction shifts the atmosphere, making the task feel more official. The others react with mixed expressions as her rank becomes clear. Outside, the group moves together while she explains the purpose behind the mission. Emphasis is placed on discipline and proper conduct. Mongrel listens quietly, showing little reaction despite the seriousness of the instructions. The leader continues outlining expectations, stressing the importance of following orders during the operation. The group accepts her authority and prepares to act accordingly. Mongrel remains steady at the rear, ready to fulfill his role without drawing attention. The leader explains that if danger arises, the mission will be stopped immediately. Her tone remains firm, showing strict control over the situation. The group listens carefully, understanding that safety takes priority over completion. She then signals the start of movement toward the forest. The team responds in unison, forming up as they prepare to leave the area. Mongrel follows quietly, keeping his usual position without drawing attention. Passing through the gate, the group exits the town and heads into open land. The surroundings begin to change as stone paths give way to nature. Their pace remains steady under the leader's guidance. Deeper into the forest, the atmosphere grows quieter. Leaves crunch underfoot while the group scans the area. A member shows concern about the presence of monsters, but uncertainty lingers. Despite the tension, no threats appear along their path. The forest remains calm, almost unnaturally so. Mongrel continues observing silently, aware that the absence of danger may not last for long. As the group advances deeper into the forest, Mongrel considers the unusual silence. He notes that even after several days, signs of monsters remain absent. The emptiness creates a sense of unease rather than relief. Others begin to question the situation as well, discussing how nothing appears along their path. The leader remains composed, suggesting that such conditions are expected during this season. Despite this explanation, uncertainty lingers among the members. The forest stretches endlessly, with no signs of activity or danger. Normally, small encounters would occur, yet everything remains still. This absence disrupts the usual rhythm of work for adventurers and guild members alike. Mongrel accepts the situation with quiet resignation, focusing on completing the task rather than questioning it further. The leader continues guiding the group forward, determined to carry out the mission despite the strange conditions. Suddenly, she raises a small object in her hand, drawing attention from the group. The movement signals a shift, breaking the monotony of their journey. As the team halts, the calm forest atmosphere begins to feel tense, hinting that something is about to change. As they continue forward, the sound of footsteps echoes across the dry leaves. Mongrel walks steadily, relying on specially made boots that allow him to move comfortably through rough terrain without distraction. His equipment stands out for its practicality rather than appearance. While others wear standard gear, his boots resist cold and dirt, offering quiet efficiency. This difference highlights his focus on comfort over convention. Suddenly, tension rises as the leader senses something unusual. Her expression tightens, and she begins scanning the surroundings carefully. The group reacts by becoming more alert, aware that the calm may be misleading. She signals for caution, instructing everyone to move, while staying aware of their surroundings. Hands remain ready near weapons as the group advances more carefully. The forest grows heavier, with silent pressure. After a brief moment, she concludes that they are too late to avoid what lies ahead. The mission, once simple and uneventful, begins to shift into something more serious. The group presses on, knowing the situation has changed. The leader grows more tense as unease spreads through the group. Her expression shows concern beyond the simple mission, suggesting something is not as expected. Others nearby begin to sense the pressure building. She warns everyone to stay alert while continuing forward. The forest feels heavier, and the silence becomes more suspicious. Mongrel follows behind, quietly observing while keeping distance from unnecessary involvement. A change in direction is made as the leader guides the group along a different path. The shift feels deliberate, as if responding to something unseen. Movement slows slightly, while caution increases. Soon, they discover clear footprints pressed into the ground. The mark suggests something large has passed through recently. Attention turns toward Mongrel, acknowledging his awareness of such details. Examining the trail further, they realize the creature altered its route ahead. The pattern indicates avoidance rather than confrontation. The leader recognizes this subtle clue, confirming that something unusual is influencing the forest's behavior. Mongrel studies the strange movement of the tracks, noticing how the creature's path shifts unnaturally. The pattern suggests deliberate avoidance rather than random wandering. He quietly concludes that something is influencing the behavior from a distance. As the group advances, the forest reveals small creatures nearby, yet none react with fear or urgency. The scene feels inconsistent with danger, creating a deeper sense of imbalance. Mongrel begins to suspect that the situation may already be resolved. Attention shifts to Bridget as her condition worsens. Her steps grow unstable, and the others begin to notice her struggle. Concern spreads through the group as they slow their pace. The leader quickly recognizes the risk of continuing under such conditions. Allowing weakness to persist could endanger everyone. She carefully evaluates the situation, deciding how to proceed without causing further harm. Bridget finally stops, unable to continue, as the strain becomes overwhelming. The leader raises a hand, halting the entire group. What began as a simple mission now turns uncertain, forcing them to reconsider their next move. The leader quickly identifies the cause of Bridget's condition, pointing to the heavy armor restricting her body. She instructs her to remove it, recognizing that the equipment is draining her strength rather than protecting her. With assistance from the others, Bridget begins removing the armor piece by piece. The process reveals how burdensome the gear truly is. Mongrel watches from behind, quietly noting the situation without interfering. Freed from the weight, Bridget steadies herself, though her condition remains fragile. The group adjusts their approach, ensuring she can continue safely. The leader remains focused, carefully monitoring her recovery. After reassessing the situation, the leader declares the mission a failure. The objective can no longer be pursued under these conditions. A decision is made to withdraw, rather than risk further harm. The group prepares to retreat, accepting the outcome. Bridget reflects on the burden she caused while others remain silent. Mongrel observes calmly, understanding that even a simple task can collapse under unexpected strain. The leader announces the end of the day's investigation, deciding to turn back after a short rest. The group accepts the outcome without resistance. Mongrel remains quiet, observing Bridget's condition as the decision settles in. A campfire is prepared as everyone gathers in a small clearing. The atmosphere softens slightly, though tension still lingers beneath the surface. Bridget sits apart, weighed down by her thoughts. While resting, she begins reflecting on her situation. The gap between expectation and reality becomes clear to her. Others remain nearby, listening without interrupting her quiet realization. Her thoughts deepen as she recalls the path that led her here. The decision to take on this role now feels uncertain. Mongrel watches from a distance, offering no reaction but understanding the weight of her reflection. Overwhelmed by doubt, she struggles to hold back her emotions. Tears begin to fall as she questions her own ability. The group stays silent, allowing her to face the moment in her own way. By the fire, the leader speaks calmly, explaining that not every task suits every person. Her words shift the mood, offering a different perspective on failure. Bridget listens quietly, still burdened, but beginning to reflect more clearly. She continues, emphasizing that choosing a path aligned with one's nature matters more than forcing unsuitable work. The message carries weight, encouraging honest self-understanding rather than blind persistence. Bridget lowers her head, feeling the truth of those words. The experience has exposed her limits, leaving a sharp sense of pain. The leader watches her closely, urging her to reconsider her role. Nearby, Mongrel reflects in silence, considering the situation from his own perspective. He recognizes that forcing someone forward may cause more harm than growth. His thoughts remain unspoken, yet steady. As the fire crackles, Bridget's expression softens slightly, though uncertainty remains. Mongrel looks away, quietly accepting the complexity of the moment. The night settles over them, leaving unresolved feelings lingering in the air. In a quiet forest, a small group rests around a weak fire. Mongrel sits nearby, watching as Bridget lowers her gaze, her expression troubled. The cold air settles in, and the mood feels heavy. He notices her silence and begins to pay closer attention. Bridget's unease becomes clearer as the others sit together. Her posture remains tense, while another girl observes her with concern. The atmosphere grows awkward, as if something unspoken lingers between them. The group shifts focus to gathering firewood. Mongrel stands and gestures calmly, directing the task. His actions are simple, yet deliberate. Attempting to ease the tension, Bridget responds quietly, still distracted. Later, Mongrel prepares food with steady hands. The fire burns more strongly now, and the group gathers again. Bridget watches him, slightly surprised by the normalcy of the moment. The scene feels warmer than before. Mongrel finishes and invites the others to eat. His practical approach brings a sense of stability. Bridget hesitates, then accepts the situation, her expression softening. The group begins to settle, the earlier tension gradually fading. Mongrel leads Bridget deeper into the forest, examining the surrounding trees. He gestures toward branches of suitable size, explaining how they should be cut. Bridget follows beside him, listening carefully, while observing the structure of the wood. She hesitates at the idea of cutting trees with a sword. Mongrel demonstrates without concern, striking a branch cleanly. He encourages her to try, showing that the blade can reach higher points with ease. Bridget steps forward and swings her sword. The motion is firm, and the branch breaks, though not cleanly. Fragments scatter across the ground. Mongrel watches from behind, assessing her attempt without interruption. A second attempt follows, this time more controlled. Her strike improves, and the branch separates more evenly. Mongrel evaluates the result, noting that the wood will still serve its purpose once dried properly. They gather the cut pieces and begin splitting thicker branches into smaller sections. Mongrel demonstrates efficient cuts, turning rough wood into usable firewood. Bridget imitates his method, gradually refining her movements as the pile grows. Mongrel explains the task while standing beside a growing pile of wood. Bridget listens, slightly uncertain. As she considers using her sword for splitting, the instruction feels unfamiliar, yet she accepts it and prepares herself. She begins with a strong downward swing. The motion is powerful, showing her physical strength, but the result lacks control. Mongrel observes quietly, recognizing her potential while noting her lack of refinement. Bridget continues striking the wood, repeating the motion with effort. Each attempt improves slightly, though her technique remains rough. Mongrel watches with a faint sense of approval, allowing her to learn through repetition. Seeing her struggle, Mongrel steps in and demonstrates proper form. His movement is precise, splitting the wood cleanly with minimal effort. Bridget pays close attention, focusing on his posture and timing. After trying again, she shows slight improvement, but still lacks consistency. Mongrel acknowledges her progress while noting she has more to learn. Bridget steadies herself, determined to continue practicing as the training quietly progresses. Mongrel stands across from Bridget and evaluates her stance. He explains that her swordsmanship was shaped for facing opponents, not handling tasks in the forest. Bridget listens while holding her weapon, beginning to understand the difference. She reflects on his words while continuing her work. Her movements slow as she thinks about her experience. Doubt appears on her face as she realizes her training may not suit this environment. Mongrel continues calmly, explaining that her skills were developed for a different setting. He points out that adapting to new conditions will take time. Bridget stands nearby, quietly absorbing his guidance. He advises her to start with what she can manage and improve step by step. His tone remains steady, offering direction without pressure. Bridget lowers her gaze, acknowledging both her limits and the path forward. The group later gathers around the fire once more. A large pile of firewood rests nearby, showing their progress. Bridget sits with the others, her expression more composed as the flames rise steadily into the air. After the task, Mongrel stands with the group as another member questions him. He responds casually, showing little concern. Soon after, one of the girls announces that the break has ended, signaling it is time to return. The group begins walking through the forest together. Their footsteps move in quiet rhythm as they leave the clearing behind. Bridget glances to the side, her expression thoughtful as she reflects on what she experienced. As they travel, the others comment on the nature of the task. Mongrel listens, while walking, appearing slightly tired yet attentive. The conversation continues around him, though his focus remains steady. The group's discussion shifts to skill and experience. Mongrel evaluates their abilities internally, recognizing both strengths and shortcomings. His expression tightens slightly as he considers their progress. Ahead, one member moves forward with determination while the others follow. Bridget walks with renewed focus, her grip on her weapon firmer than before. The group continues onward, carrying both their results and their lessons. While walking, a woman observes Mongrel carrying supplies with ease. She notes his composure despite the load, suggesting that such tasks were already familiar to him. Mongrel listens without reacting much, maintaining his usual calm presence. Her tone shifts as she explains that their concern was not about the forest creatures, but about Bridget's safety. She reflects on the uncertainty of the situation, implying that the mission carried hidden risks beyond the obvious. She continues her assessment, pointing out that another member's abilities are not flawless. Mongrel responds quietly, acknowledging that even strong individuals still act and adapt in their own ways. Attention turns to compatibility. One member is recognized for skill with a bow, capable of responding quickly to danger. Mongrel considers this, understanding the advantage such precision brings in uncertain conditions. The woman concludes by stating that such abilities are something one is born with. As they walk through the forest, the group carries on, each member holding their own strengths while moving toward the next stage of their journey. The woman turns toward Mongrel with a knowing expression, suggesting he no longer needs to hide anything. Her gaze sharpens as she questions what he truly possesses. Mongrel remains still, but tension begins to form around him. His expression shifts suddenly, eyes widening as her words strike deeper than expected. A quiet realization surfaces, and unease spreads across his face. The others walk ahead, unaware of the weight of the moment. Mongrel gathers his thoughts, trying to understand how she noticed. His mind races, searching for what might have exposed him. The woman watches calmly, as if already certain of her conclusion. She presses further, showing confidence in her judgment. Mongrel tightens his expression, aware that denying it may only complicate things. The distance between them feels smaller, filled with unspoken understanding. Finally, she states her belief clearly, pointing to the strength he carries. The word she chooses frames it not as skill, but as something innate. Mongrel stands in silence, realizing that what he tried to conceal has already been seen. Mongrel looks ahead with a tense expression as the group pauses. The woman faces him calmly, her confidence unchanged. Others stand nearby, watching the situation unfold without fully understanding it. His thoughts begin to race, imagining how things might worsen if his secret becomes known. Concern builds as he considers the consequences. The possibility of being exposed creates a sense of pressure he cannot ignore. He steadies himself and decides on a simple approach. Instead of reacting openly, he chooses to remain quiet and controlled. The woman observes him closely, recognizing his attempt to stay composed. She explains that his ability could be used more effectively with proper support. The group listens as she outlines how his strength might reach its full potential. Mongrel remains silent, processing her words. Her intention becomes clear as she proposes cooperation. She suggests that his power could help handle dangerous threats and difficult tasks. Mongrel stands still, realizing that his hidden strength has now drawn new expectations from those around him. Mongrel faces the woman with a firm expression, acknowledging her proposal but showing clear hesitation. He understands the benefits she offers, yet the burden behind it feels heavy. The woman maintains a confident smile, aware of the advantage she holds. She continues, presenting her offer as protection and support. Her words suggest that joining her group would secure his secret while giving him a place among them. Mongrel listens carefully, weighing the hidden cost behind her calm tone. Before he can respond, another member steps forward and rejects the idea outright. The interruption shifts the mood, breaking the tension between Mongrel and the woman. He glances forward, surprised by the sudden resistance. The woman pauses, slightly taken aback, as the group's stance becomes clearer. Mongrel remains quiet, allowing the situation to unfold. The balance of control begins to shift away from her. The refusal is stated firmly, leaving no room for negotiation. The woman's composure falters for a moment, while the group stands united. Mongrel watches in silence, realizing that the decision may no longer rest on him alone. The tension settles as the group reflects on what just happened. The woman considers her approach, realizing it may have been too forceful. Another member stands firm, reinforcing that the offer was unnecessary. Situation softens as a calmer suggestion is made. Instead of pushing further, they agree to take things slowly. Mongrel watches quietly, his expression easing as the pressure fades. A lighter mood begins to return. One member smiles, shifting the focus away from conflict. Mongrel sits nearby, appearing more relaxed as the group regains its balance. Attention turns to something more practical. The group discusses returning and enjoying a simple reward after their work. The earlier tension is replaced with a more casual atmosphere. The woman accepts the outcome without resistance. She steps back, leaving the decision open for the future. Mongrel remains thoughtful, aware that the matter is not fully resolved but no longer urgent. Mongrel considers the situation with a calmer mindset as the group prepares to move on. The earlier tension fades into quiet understanding beside him. The others remain steady, allowing him space while the journey continues forward. Under a quiet sky, the group moved through the forest without urgency. Their task had been simple, only transporting goods and returning safely. No battles had taken place, and nothing had disrupted their journey. Despite the calm, a subtle weight lingered among them. Back in the village, familiar buildings came into view as they completed their assignment. The swordsman observed the scene with mild reflection. Though the work seemed ordinary, he felt that such experiences still had value. A faint sense of fulfillment settled in his thoughts. Soon after, the young woman lowered her head, burdened by her own shortcomings. Regret filled her expression as she acknowledged her lack of skill. The others watched quietly, recognizing the effort she had made despite her inexperience. The outcome of the mission remained modest, reflected in the small reward they received. It was a lawful result, yet far from impressive. The reality of their work became clear, grounded in simple tasks and limited gains. Later, she lay in silence, thinking deeply about her future. A decision formed within her as she considered returning home, facing her path seriously. She resolved to reflect on both her work and her place in the world. A gentle expression appeared on her face as she reflected on the path ahead. Gratitude surfaced within her, shaped by the support she had received. That quiet realization brought a small but meaningful sense of direction. Nearby, the swordsman reacted with exaggerated relief, his tension finally easing. He understood that her decision came from her own resolve. Observing her smile, he recognized a strength that did not rely on skill alone. Facing one another, the two stood in calm acceptance of what might come next. The possibility of failure remained, yet it no longer held the same weight. With a steady gesture, she expressed appreciation and prepared to move forward on her own path. As the group began to part, the moment lingered in quiet stillness. The swordsman called her name, pausing her steps briefly. Recognition passed between them, marking the end of their shared task. Afterward, she reflected on her weaknesses with clear awareness. Growth, though incomplete, had already begun to take shape within her. Even without certainty, she carried forward a stronger understanding of herself and the road she would follow. The swordsman spoke calmly, acknowledging her effort while comparing her growth to others. He did not dismiss her path, instead encouraging her to continue improving. A small reminder surfaced as he recalled something she had forgotten during their task. In his hand rested her identification, a simple item yet important for her future. He returned it without hesitation. The suggestion to visit the guild again someday lingered, though no pressure followed his words. Gratitude filled the moment as she faced the group one last time. Determination replaced her earlier doubt, shaping a quiet promise to keep moving forward. The bond formed during their journey remained firm in her thoughts. Turning away, she walked down the street alone. Her figure gradually blended into the distance, leaving the group behind. The town carried on as usual, unchanged by her departure. Silence settled among those who remained, their expressions reflecting a mix of relief and fatigue. The task had been slow and uneventful, yet it carried its own weight. Despite everything, they accepted the outcome and moved on. The group remained together, their attention shifting after her departure. A light remark broke the silence, questioning the nature of their actions. Despite the simplicity of their work, a sense of normalcy returned among them. Expressions softened as they relaxed, their earlier tension fading into casual ease. Some found humor in the situation, while others quietly reflected on the slow progress of their tasks. The atmosphere became noticeably lighter. Soon after, attention turned to their next steps. Plans formed around returning and recovering from the journey. Fatigue, though mild, lingered in their movements. Confusion briefly surfaced when an unexpected suggestion arose. The idea seemed out of place, drawing puzzled reactions from those nearby. Their understanding did not immediately align. With a confident demeanor, the swordsman clarified the reasoning behind it. His perspective carried a certain logic, grounded in practicality. Gradually, the others accepted his approach, even if it differed from their expectations. The group gathered briefly before parting ways, their task finally complete. Arrangements were made for the next steps, with a plan to rest and recover. As they separated, the lingering strain of the journey quietly came to an end. Inside, a simple room, the swordsman prepared himself with renewed energy. Anticipation replaced fatigue, as he focused on enjoying a moment of comfort. His mood shifted noticeably, driven by a personal sense of reward. Without delay, he set off toward the bath. moving with unusual enthusiasm. The pace of his steps reflected his eagerness, leaving little trace of exhaustion behind. Meanwhile, another member arrived shortly after, still worn from earlier exertion. Sweat and fatigue remained evident, contrasting sharply with the swordsman's excitement. A brief pause followed as they adjusted to the situation. Guidance was offered as they entered the building together, heading deeper inside. The space appeared calm and orderly, signaling a place meant for rest. With the destination now clear, they continued forward to unwind. Inside the building, clear instructions were given about the bath area. The space required care, and cleanliness was expected from anyone using it. With that explained, the path forward became simple. The swordsman responded casually, showing little concern as he prepared to proceed. Responsibility was briefly passed along before he moved on alone. His relaxed attitude contrasted with the more careful guidance he had received. Soon after, he reached the changing area and stepped inside without hesitation. A familiar sense of comfort returned as he entered, carrying a calm expression. The moment felt ordinary, almost routine. Steam filled the room as he arrived at the bath, only to find someone already there. The unexpected presence halted him briefly. Standing across from him, she remained composed, as if the situation required no reaction. The atmosphere shifted as awareness settled between them. The bath, already prepared, stood quietly nearby. In that still moment, the situation became clear, leaving no room for misunderstanding. His attention shifted to a strange metal panel embedded in the wall. Its design appeared unusual, with patterns that hinted at a specific function. Curiosity led him to examine it more closely. Standing beside him, she revealed that the device was her creation. The mechanism relied on magic to heat the water efficiently. By controlling the flow of energy, the system worked without unnecessary waste. He observed the bath again, now understanding its structure more clearly. The explanation gave new meaning to what seemed like an ordinary setup. Appreciation formed as he recognized the ingenuity behind it. A quiet confidence showed in her expression as she explained its limitations. Only those capable of handling magic could operate such tools. Because of that, the invention remained impractical for wider use. With her task complete, she stepped back and left the rest to him. The bath stood ready, its purpose fulfilled. Left alone, he acknowledged the value of the invention before settling in to enjoy the moment. He expressed quiet gratitude, acknowledging the help he had received during the day. The moment felt sincere, though his relaxed attitude remained unchanged. She listened calmly, observing him without interruption. Soon after, he revealed something he had prepared for himself. A pair of containers appeared in his hands, meant for a simple kind of enjoyment. The idea reflected his casual approach to comfort. She reacted with composed restraint, accepting his intention while setting a clear boundary. Her expression stayed gentle, yet firm enough to prevent any reckless behavior. The situation remained under control. With that settled, the mood lightened again. He moved forward without hesitation, setting things down before preparing himself. The space returned to quiet anticipation. Moments later, he immersed himself in the bath, letting the tension fade from his body. Relief spread through him as the warmth took effect. Behind that calm, a small sense of satisfaction marked the end of the day. He sank into the bath, allowing the heat to spread through his entire body. Muscles that had carried the weight of the journey finally loosened. A deep sense of relief replaced the lingering strain. The warmth pressed gently against his skin, sharper than expected yet strangely soothing. It was not simple water, but something more refined in its effect. Gradually, his awareness adjusted to the sensation. As time passed, his body settled into the heat while a faint chill brushed against his face. The contrast sharpened his senses, creating a balance between comfort and alertness. Even the smallest details became noticeable. Leaning back, he reached for the drink he had prepared earlier. The cool liquid contrasted with the bath, easing his throat as he took a slow sip. Thoughts drifted briefly to distant places and unfamiliar customs. Beyond that moment, his reflections turned toward simple living. With basic needs met, survival did not seem difficult. A quiet understanding formed, grounded in the idea that effort alone could shape his path forward. The bath remained still, its structure simple, yet valuable. Compared to other needs, its importance seemed surprisingly high. Water and fuel alone made such comfort rare in this world. Leaning back, he reflected on that difference, while soaking in the warmth. The contrast between past and present became clear. For now, he accepted the moment without questioning it further. Elsewhere, footsteps echoed through the quiet hallway as someone approached with folded cloth in hand. A sudden thought crossed his mind, interrupting his calm. Awareness sharpened as he realized what might happen next. She stopped at the door and knocked, prepared to deliver what was needed. Her expression remained composed, unaware of the situation inside. the distance between them held only a thin barrier. From within the bath, he reacted quickly, calling out to stop her. The urgency broke the calm atmosphere instantly. Outside, her expression shifted as understanding began to settle in. Inside the bath, he remained immersed in intense heat, his body struggling against the overwhelming temperature. Strength slowly faded as the warmth pressed deeper into him. Outside, she paused in the hallway, unaware of how serious his condition had become. Realization reached her as she stood by the door, sensing something was wrong. Concern replaced her calm expression, and hesitation followed. In that moment, she understood that what lay inside was not a simple situation. Mongrel rests quietly in a bath, showing no concern for anything beyond the moment. In another room, a young girl stands alone, holding something in her hands while the quiet space around her feels heavy. The girl lowers her gaze, her expression filled with worry. Thoughts of returning to her homeland weigh on her, and uncertainty lingers as she reflects on her situation. Resolve begins to form within her. She tightens her fists, deciding she must act to lift Mongrel's spirits. Soon after, she moves through a calm room where others sit, carrying her determination with her. She approaches the group and tries to present herself as composed. Although concern is raised about Mongrel, she insists that nothing is wrong, attempting to hide her unease. Later, the atmosphere settles into quiet contemplation. The girl stands with her arms crossed, thinking carefully, while others sit nearby and consider what might happen next. Two women discuss a noble's situation, questioning whether such work in the capital suits her. Doubt lingers as they quietly evaluate her role and responsibilities. Frida speaks calmly beside a young boy, suggesting that if the noble can stand on her own, sympathy is unnecessary. Her composed attitude reflects experience and distance from emotion. The boy recalls meeting the noble, and finds her unexpectedly ordinary, despite her status. Nearby, another girl listens and admits the task felt heavier than expected, sensing something unusual. A small group gathers, sharing their thoughts about the noble's character and background. While some believe she can manage well, others consider the gap between expectation and reality. The black-haired girl turns to the boy with a subtle expression, testing him with a quiet question. He remains still, caught off guard as the moment shifts into a more personal tension. The tension breaks as the boy makes an unexpected remark, causing the room to erupt in laughter. The girl stands stunned for a moment, while the others relax, their mood lightening. Attention shifts as a woman enters, drawing focus to a different matter. The boy observes her closely, sensing something unusual about the situation surrounding the household. Another girl reflects on the discussion, acknowledging the noble's position while comparing it to her own understanding. A quiet realization forms as she considers the gap between appearances and truth. The group resumes a more serious tone, discussing the future and the presence of others who may join. Thoughts become more cautious as the situation grows more complex. Mongrel appears at the doorway, looking refreshed and unconcerned. His calm presence contrasts with the earlier tension, subtly shifting the atmosphere back to normal. The group discusses their next steps, weighing enjoyment against responsibility. A decision remains unsettled, but preparations begin as they consider future obligations. Mongrel casually accepts the situation, showing little concern for strict plans. He then turns his attention to a simple matter, inviting the boy along while dismissing any burden placed on others. Before leaving, he gives light advice, warning that certain tasks are troublesome. The boy listens quietly, sensing that even ordinary work may carry hidden weight. Outside, Mongrel walks alone through the gate, appearing relaxed as always. Meanwhile, inside, the others reflect on his attitude, noting his discomfort when dealing with nobles despite his strength. The conversation settles into a calm conclusion. The boy understands Mongrel's nature more clearly, while the noblewoman recognizes that his actions come from a simple, consistent way of living. Several days pass under calm weather as Mongrel works alone, using simple tools without complaint. His steady effort reflects his preference for quiet, uncomplicated tasks. From above, he notices a woman struggling with her work. Instead of ignoring it, he offers help casually, treating the situation as something ordinary rather than a burden. The woman left alone after losing her husband continues managing everything by herself. Despite her situation, she works diligently, supported only by occasional help from others. Inside the inn, her responsibilities extend beyond cooking, covering nearly all tasks. As a result, the quality of service declines, and the place begins to lose its former reputation. Mongrel reflects on his past, recalling how he arrived in the town years ago. His time there has been simple and steady, shaped by routine rather than ambition, as he continues living without seeking change. Mongrel helps the innkeeper with her work, casually taking over a task, while reflecting on how long he has stayed in this place. Time passes quietly as he continues living without much thought about change. Later, he eats a simple meal, noticing how his habits have shifted over time. His body begins to adapt to the local food, showing how deeply he has settled into this life. The innkeeper speaks lightly about his future, suggesting he should find a partner. Mongrel listens without reacting much, while others nearby observe the situation with mild curiosity. Her suggestion draws a strong reaction from a younger girl who quickly interrupts. The moment reveals a hint of tension, while the others interpret her behavior as something familiar. Mongrel chooses to step away from the conversation, leaving the matter unresolved. Outside, another figure reflects calmly, suggesting that certain concerns should not trouble someone like him. A bowl of fine powder is revealed, drawing Mongrel's attention. His expression shifts slightly as he recognizes its potential use. The innkeeper explains that the white flour was given by a relative. Mongrel listens carefully, realizing it could be used to create something different from their usual meals. He reflects on how simple ingredients can become better food with the right method. The idea forms quickly, and he prepares to try something new without overthinking it. The innkeeper allows him to use the flour, trusting his unusual approach. Mongrel accepts it with ease, showing quiet confidence in what he plans to make. Holding the jar, he becomes focused, already imagining the result. As he moves away, his attention turns fully toward improving the food, treating it as a small but meaningful task. Mongrel walks through the quiet hallway, recalling how bread once existed in his previous world. He realizes that what people call bread here is different, lacking the qualities he remembers. Standing in the kitchen, he examines the current food with a critical eye. While it is acceptable, he finds it lacking in taste and texture, especially compared to what he knows. A sense of purpose appears as he decides to act. He plans to recreate a familiar type of bread, focusing on something simple yet effective. He considers the ingredients and method, simplifying the process to match the available resources. Even without advanced tools, he believes a better result can still be achieved. The steps form clearly in his mind as he prepares to begin. Although the process takes time and patience, he accepts the challenge, ready to bring a new kind of bread into this world. Mongrel studies the dough and realizes proper fermentation requires sealing. Since proper tools do not exist in this world, he begins searching for a simple substitute. An idea forms as he recalls a familiar method. He picks up a thin sheet, recognizing it as a useful replacement that can trap air and maintain the right condition. Carefully, he applies the material over the container, creating a tight seal. As time passes, the surface softens slightly, showing that the method is working as intended. He considers how this material could be used beyond cooking. Although valuable, its current form limits its potential, making it more of a clever workaround than a finished invention. With preparation complete, Mongrel turns his attention to the next step. Holding the container, he quietly anticipates the result, ready to continue refining his process. Mongrel recalls that yeast is essential for making bread rise. In this world, it must be created naturally using fruits, so he prepares the mixture and seals it carefully. He notes that natural yeast cannot be bought anywhere, making the process necessary despite the effort. With the setup complete, he calmly decides to begin the bread-making process. As he works, he considers how the final product can be enjoyed. The bread could be paired with simple additions, turning it into a satisfying and versatile meal. Time passes as the mixture begins to react. The surface changes noticeably, showing signs of fermentation as the yeast develops within the container. Mongrel waits patiently, watching the results with quiet focus. With everything progressing as expected, he prepares to move forward, confident in the outcome of his method. Mongrel checks the fermented mixture and quickly changes his plan. Instead of continuing with the bread, he decides to make something simpler, using the prepared ingredients. His mood lifts as he shifts direction without hesitation. Later that night, he finishes his work and eats without concern. The task leaves him satisfied enough, and he goes to sleep calmly, treating the entire effort as just another small part of his routine.